The Magician of the Fairy Tale World. Chapter 21. During this period, Leyland would occasionally hear whispers of wishes from afar. Every day, he would pick out the strongest wishes, listen carefully, and make them come true. Leyland didn't need to physically travel to the location of the wish makers. Instead, he summoned tiny nature spirits and birds, or directly gave orders to local officials, indirectly providing assistance. Suddenly, he heard another prayer from afar. What an astonishing power of wishes! Leyland trembled all over. This time, the one praying was a child of destiny, or rather, a protagonist of destiny. Leyland had suspected before that the so-called children of destiny were probably those significant characters who had appeared in fairy tales, but he never had a chance to verify it. The young man quickly closed his eyes and listened to Oz's prayer. A magician and balloonist named Oz works in a circus. Worried about being implicated in a counterfeit gold coin incident. After reading the content of the wish, Leyland couldn't help but smile wryly. What the heck? So, he's afraid of this. However, since you prayed to me in your dream, I must fulfill your wish. The young man smiled secretly. The content of the wish is, escape the kingdom and go to a safe place. As thoughts raced through his mind, Leyland had many associations with Oz's identity. His name is Oz. And he's a child of destiny. A rather timid personality. Skilled in magic and ballooning. Could it be that Oz? Oz, the trickster king from the Emerald City, or the wonderful Wizard of Oz. In this fairy tale, the protagonist Dorothy was swept away by a tornado to a fantastical realm far from the mundane world, the land of Oz, and embarked on a magical journey, befriending a scarecrow, a tin woodman, and a lion. The land of Oz had powerful witches in the east, west, north, and south, while Oz, who lived in the Emerald City at the center of the land of Oz, was an even more formidable great magician. Of course, as the story unfolds, and from the perspective of the protagonist Dorothy, readers will discover that the so-called great magician Oz is actually a big fraud, and all his magic, or just parlor tricks. It's actually that Oz before he went to the land of Oz. It's definitely not called the Land of Oz yet. After all, Oz hasn't even gone there yet. It will probably be a few more years before the Emerald City is built. Many more years later, the protagonist Dorothy will set foot in the Land of Oz. I actually arrived in such an early era and met the future, great magician, Oz in advance. This discovery was somewhat beyond Leyland's expectations. After all, according to the original, the Emerald City, Oz's hometown was Omaha, USA. Of course, as Leyland knew, there was no country named United States of America in this mixed fairy tale world. It was also reasonable for Oz's birthplace and part of his background to change. So, Leyland began to consider how to fulfill Oz's wish. According to the original work, Oz went to the green fields because his hot air balloon lost control. Then I'll help him facilitate this prophecy. Today, the circus where Oz worked was holding its usual performance. Before the performance began, he sat in a rising hot air balloon to attract the audience to come and watch, gathering them together, so that everyone would buy more tickets. At this moment, Oz heard someone in the audience shout, "Wow, it's His Majesty the King's soldiers. Are they here to see the circus too?" Oz craned his neck to look, and sure enough, he saw a small squad of soldiers walking towards them. Oh no, my nightmare has come true. His Majesty the King must have sent soldiers to arrest me. This brilliant magician's face turned deathly pale, and he trembled in the hot air balloon basket. Snap! Just as Oz was at a loss, the rope broke on its own. Oh no, what's happening? Why did the rope break? The uncontrolled hot air balloon drifted with the wind, rising high into the sky. The hot air balloon kept floating and floating, flying farther and farther away. The audience below cried out in alarm. The magician Oz is still on the hot air balloon. Who's going to save him? The Oz story is just a small interlude. Tomorrow we'll return to the Princess Aurora storyline. Amidst the audience's exclamations, the wind-blown balloon and the magician Oz vanished together into the distant sky. On a distant hill, the silver-haired boy laughed. Esteemed great magician Oz, your wish to safely escape the kingdom has been fulfilled. Remember to give a good review. Just now, Lord Rhine had imbued the rope with life, causing it to snap on its own. As for the soldiers who came to watch the circus, Lord Rhine had, of course, arranged for them in secret. To fulfill my client's wishes, I go all out. How could there be such a good magician as me in this world? Lord Rhine was not worried about Oz's safety. He knew that, according to the original plot of The Green Field, Oz's journey would not only be free of danger but would also lead him to become an emperor. Literal meaning. To be safe, he even performed a divination and confirmed it was an auspicious omen that would bring a turning point in fate. Having fulfilled another protagonist's wish, Lord Rhine once again felt the growth of power within his soul. As his slender palm moved, a slight distortion appeared in space. After fulfilling Oz's wish to escape abroad, he gained a trace of spatial power. It seems I can teleport to distant places as long as I wish. Of course, it cannot be a place I haven't been to or don't understand, and there's a certain distance limit. In the future, even if Black Witch Maleficent comes looking for trouble, while I can't defeat her, I can at least take Princess Aurora and run. There are still 15 years until the curse of being pricked by a spindle and dying takes effect. Once Princess Aurora grows a bit older, I can take her outside the Rose Kingdom and travel the continent. By then, the Emerald City of Oz will surely have been built. I can take her to Oz to see. Lord Rhine smiled, looking up at the snowy layered clouds and the azure sky, and couldn't help but imagine the future. The balloon drifted and drifted, drifting above the clouds. Oh my, the balloon is drifting farther and farther away. I don't know where it will go. Oz shivered in the air from the cold and fear. Thus, the balloon drifted in the air for a day and a night. Waking up the next day, Oz found that the balloon had flown over a beautiful and strange land. After a few more hours, the balloon slowly descended, and he was safe and sound. Oz found himself among a group of strange people. Their attire was unlike any group Oz knew in the kingdom. The men wore round hats with a small pointed peak in the middle and small bells hanging on all four sides, jingling as they walked. The women wore white robes draped over their shoulders, sparkling with tiny stars that looked like diamonds in the sunlight. Wow, did he come down from the clouds? Yes, I saw it with my own eyes just now. At first, he was so high above the ground, just a tiny dot, and then he slowly descended. Sir, you can actually fly. You must be a great magician, right? Esteemed, great magician, may I ask why you have graced our land? The strange-looking people looked at Oz with eyes full of admiration and reverence, clearly mistaking the sky-descending Oz for a powerful great magician. What magic? I'm just a magician. Oz was about to say so but stopped himself. These people seemed to respect magicians very much, and they also seemed very easy to fool. I'm hungry and thirsty now, so couldn't I pretend to be a magician and get some food and drink from them? Haha, anyway, it's so far away here, no one can verify whether what I say is true or false. Oz smiled slightly, put his hands on his hips, displaying his years of stage performance skills, and began to weave a story for the onlookers without even needing a draft. That's right, I am the powerful magician, Oz, from the kingdom in the west. I started learning magic from great magician Rhine when I was 5 years old. You might not know, he is the most powerful great magician in our country. And I am Lord Rhine's most favored disciple, inheriting all his magic. The onlookers listened to Oz's story, their eyes wide, utterly stunned, occasionally letting out gasps of surprise. Oh my, if Lord Rhine heard the lies I'm telling, he would surely kill me. Please protect me, and let him never know what I've said. Oz secretly grumbled. Wow, you truly are an amazing magician. The strangely dressed people shrieked excitedly. Soon, the people who worshipped magicians arranged a lavish banquet for Oz. They offered the most delicious food, allowing the hungry and thirsty Oz to have a good, hearty meal. Great magician, have you had enough to eat? Of course. Thank you for your food and water. Oz wiped his greasy mouth clean. Instantly, shimmering light gleamed in the eyes of the men and women, and they pleaded, then, Great Magician Oz, please use your powerful magic to help us defeat the evil Eastern Witch and free us all from the Eastern Witch's enslavement. What witch? Does your country also have witches? The kind that can actually use magic? Oz almost fainted when he saw the sincerity in their eyes. Me, fighting the Eastern Witch? Is this for real? Beyond the lands of the Rose Kingdom, in a hidden corner no diviner could ever find, stood a sinister, dark, and terrifying Gothic castle. Inside the castle, Black Witch Maleficent stretched lazily on her obsidian throne, recalling her recent experiences in the royal city. I just casually destroyed a kingdom and cursed a bunch of people I hated. It's no big deal, nothing to worry about. For a legendary magic master like her, the survival of a secular kingdom was but a thought away. But her supernatural intuition vaguely sensed a hint of unease. Wait, did I forget something? That's right, that night, there was one last blessing opportunity left. That little court magician, Rhine, hadn't yet bestowed a blessing upon Princess Aurora. How could I have overlooked that? The magic of those mediocre talents couldn't possibly break my curse. But if they utilized the blessing opportunity, that would be a different story. Maleficent believed in one principle: whatever she did, she had to do it perfectly. She would not allow her curse to fail. The Black Witch closed her eyes, carefully sensing the curse she had cast. After a while, the Black Witch opened her eyes. Something's not right. The curse hasn't been weakened. She clearly sensed that the curse's power had not diminished in the slightest. The prophecy that the little princess would die at 15 by pricking her finger on a spinning wheel still stood firm in the river of fate, unaltered. Now, it was the Black Witch's turn to be bewildered. Didn't they have one last blessing opportunity left? Aren't they going to use it? Could it be that they completely ignored my curse and just gave the princess a normal blessing? That would be truly foolish. The Black Witch sneered. Still uneasy, she took out a crystal ball and began to chant a spell. Within the kingdom, hundreds of thousands of crows became the Black Witch's eyes and ears. The crows flew into streets and alleys, entered taverns, collecting the information the Black Witch needed. Have you heard? For some unknown reason, the king has imprisoned the princess deep within the palace, not allowing anyone to enter or leave that building. Really? Is the king going insane? Yeah, and recently the king's soldiers have been going door to door confiscating spinning wheels. Heaven knows what the king is thinking. Shish, keep your voice down. What are you all talking nonsense about? Covers mouth. It's such a pity, sighs, they say the little princess once received blessings from witches and is the most beautiful child in the world. I really want to see what this little beauty looks like with my own eyes. What are you thinking, fellow? Princess Aurora is not someone you can just casually see. After finding that everything was as expected, Black Witch Maleficent satisfactorily stopped her magic, a mocking smile on her lips. Ha 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 ha. You think that by not letting Princess Aurora touch a spinning wheel, the curse won't come true. Just as I expected, that's what that foolish king would do. The Black Witch walked down the stone steps, out of the dark castle, and instantly transformed into a giant dragon, flapping her wings and flying into the dark sky. Speaking of which, I've been staying in that Broken Rose Kingdom for over a decade. It's been a long time since I've seen my sisters and friends, hee hee hee. Aurora's main storyline will seamlessly connect to the Tinderbox tomorrow. Also, sometimes it's inevitable that I miss typos myself, so please, dear readers, use the error correction function. Rhine and the 12 witches, accompanied by Princess Aurora, traveled to a small town outside the capital. Using an illusion spell from one of the witches, they subtly altered their appearances to avoid being recognized. Time flew by, days passed one after another. The witches took turns caring for the princess, while Rhine remained by Aurora's side, occasionally listening to wishes from afar, either teleporting to fulfill them before returning, or summoning birds and nature spirits to complete the tasks for him. During the day, Rhine was the princess's tutor. In the evenings, the witches took turns instructing the princess. Princess Aurora grew older day by day. She was unaware of her noble and distinguished status, yet all blessings manifested in her. She was intelligent and beautiful, loved by all, her learning speed was astonishing, and she had a photographic memory. Her body was always healthy, as if a gift from the gods, tireless. To maximize the potential of this blessed body, Rhine specifically designed a set of scientific exercise routines. After seeing Rhine's training plan, which was centuries ahead of its time, the witches also expressed sentiments centuries ahead of their time. This is child abuse. She doesn't get tired or sick anyway. What's wrong with exercising 12 hours a day? I've already deducted time for eating and sleeping. Why are you looking at me? Wasn't perfectly healthy body the blessing you bestowed? Rhine tried to defend himself. Even in magic, Princess Aurora also showed some talent. Although not as gifted as Rhine, she truly surprised the witches. In this world, people with enough talent to learn magic are one in a million. Most people, even if they studied hard their entire lives, could not cast the simplest spells. From time to time, Rhine and the witches would, using funds provided by the king, hire teachers with expertise in different fields to teach the princess knowledge in astronomy, geography, mathematics, history, natural history, and more. Every teacher was at least once startled by the girl's almost photographic memory and intelligence. Of course, even the most imaginative teacher could not guess. This clever, polite, well-behaved, and lovable little girl in front of them was the princess from the bards' legends, the one who was supposed to be forever imprisoned in the deepest part of the palace. During the teaching process, this young girl displayed an adorable sensibility beyond her age. Though she was very young, she seemed to possess an enchanting charm. Every rise and fall of her voice evoked pity and made one want to impart all knowledge. Several times, teachers would rather not charge, and even offered to pay, just to get another chance to teach Princess Aurora. After the little princess with the photographic memory successfully completed a course, how to politely dismiss the corresponding teacher became a headache for Rhine and the witches. Please, your child is a mathematical genius. I don't want money, please let her be my sole disciple. Go, go, go. Don't think I don't know you taught everything you could last week and dragged it out for a whole week. Now it's more like the child teaching you. Alright. It's fine if your child becomes my teacher. Scram. After sending off another hired private tutor, Rhine covered his forehead and sighed. Is this the extraordinary charm bestowed by the blessing? It's too terrifying. This captivating allure is completely on the level of an anomalous meme. Indeed, Rhine had to admit that his current appearance also possessed an ethereal beauty. But Princess Aurora's extraordinary charm came directly from the dual blessings of appearance and voice, which was almost supernatural and something he could not simulate at all. Princess Aurora is only 7 years old now, and her extraordinary charm has already reached this level. What will happen when she grows up? Compared to the native witches, Rhine, who came from another world, could most profoundly understand the terrifying power contained within Princess Aurora. On the internet, this power is often called Chinese succubus, primarily characterized by captivating everyone regardless of gender or age, and commanding universal response in desperate situations. But Rhine was confident that this was a universal superpower, across ancient and modern times, and all cultures. King, your kingdom has an heir. With such a commander, how could the army not be victorious? With such a monarch, how could the nation not be prosperous? Many days later, Rhine decided that Aurora had undergone sufficient training and her body was strong enough, so it was time for her to formally learn combat techniques. Thus, he hired a master swordsman for the little princess. On Earth, swords were not particularly excellent battlefield weapons, their reach was inferior to long weapons, and their armor-piercing capability was inferior to blunt weapons. But in this extraordinary world, swordsmanship was the strongest and most versatile martial art. The master swordsman, the most famous master swordsman in the kingdom, served as the little princess's sword teacher. His martial arts were unrivaled in the kingdom, and he naturally held himself in high regard. If not for the help provided by the king, it would have been impossible to invite this sword saint, renowned throughout the kingdom, with money alone. I never expected that the king himself would summon me and command me to teach swordsmanship. The king's expression is so solemn, I wonder which brave warrior requires my guidance. Upon receiving the king's secret appointment, the master swordsman couldn't help but fantasize. Could it be a courageous general commanding the kingdom's army? Or a formidable figure in the king's guard? When the master swordsman finally saw his student in person, his jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Ah, you mean, you want me to teach this little girl swordsmanship? The master swordsman was dumbfounded, his trembling finger pointing forward. A few meters ahead, a little girl with hair like melted gold stood obediently. She looked only 7 or 8 years old, elegant and polite, with a noble beauty radiating from her serene and graceful demeanor. That's right. You two will practice swordsmanship every day. Rhine pulled out the wooden sword he had prepared long ago. Am I supposed to duel with this big, this heavy wooden sword, and this little girl? The master swordsman looked at the heavy wooden sword, which was almost taller than the little girl, and completely lost the ability to control his facial expressions. Of course not. Rhine immediately denied the master swordsman's guess. The master swordsman breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Rhine threw the wooden sword to little Aurora. The wooden sword is for her. I'm afraid she might cut you. You just use a real sword. The master swordsman looked at the sharp sword at his waist, its bloody scent lingering. Then he looked at the golden-haired little girl in front of him, who had raised the wooden sword, which was taller than herself, and was seriously observing him, her opponent. The master swordsman suddenly felt that the world was a bit unreal. Am I dreaming? Rhine shrugged, an expression of course on his face. Anyway, the little princess has the immune to all weapons blessing from the witches, so she won't be hurt even if she's cut by a real sword. Instead, this master swordsman, a mortal of flesh and blood, needs to worry about himself. A few seconds later, the master swordsman was knocked to the ground by Aurora's terrifying strength, and feeling the pain in his body, he finally realized. He was indeed not dreaming. With the witch's blessing, Princess Aurora's photographic memory and extraordinary learning ability were fully displayed in her swordsmanship practice. Any move, once seen, could be firmly memorized. When she used it, it was as if she had practiced it thousands of times, smooth and fluid. She even improved upon it, surpassing her teacher. Her perpetually healthy physique and invulnerability to blades and spears allowed Princess Aurora to practice various high-risk or potentially harmful movements without worrying about injury or lingering after effects. With all these factors combined, Aurora, learning combat techniques, was like a monster in the skin of a young girl, progressing at an incredible speed, growing every minute. Both Rhine and the witches were overjoyed to witness the princess's growth. To be honest, the current monstrous little Princess Aurora gave them a sense of unreality. Every time they saw Aurora knock the master swordsman to the ground like a true master swordsman, the witches roared in their minds. Is the blessing on the princess really from us? Watching Her Royal Highness the princess improve day by day, the only one who wasn't in a good mood was the master swordsman, who was responsible for getting beaten up every day. This golden-haired little girl, heaven knows what species she was. She looked so petite, yet she possessed monstrous strength. At first, he could still contend with Aurora by relying on his skills and advantages in swordsmanship. But once Aurora gradually learned his swordsmanship, he was left with nothing but getting beaten. That day, the master swordsman, bruised and swollen from the beating, tossed and turned in bed, recalling a story that had been circulating in the kingdom for the past few years. A story about a magician who could grant wishes. Sage beyond the world, prophet who knows the future, sorcerer of miracles and wishes, I pray to you. My wish is, I hope that when I wake up tomorrow morning, my body will no longer hurt. That night, Rhine, who was sleeping in the adjacent room and heard the wish, stealthily entered the master swordsman's room under the cover of darkness and used his most proficient healing magic to treat him. The next morning, the master swordsman's injuries were indeed healed. No way. Is this legend true? Does wishing really work? The master swordsman was ecstatic. Seeing that the master swordsman's injuries had recovered well, Rhine was also very satisfied. Great. This way, he can be used for a longer time. That night, the master swordsman lay in bed, praying devoutly, and made another wish. Let me quickly finish this secret mission for the king, and stop sparring with this monster in a girl's skin. To his immense regret, this time, the magician who granted wishes did not bestow mercy or fulfill his heart's desire. And so, many more days passed. Today, the brave master swordsman fled in disarray. Of course, the core reason he was able to leave successfully was that Rhine had repeatedly confirmed that he had nothing more to teach Aurora. It seems there are no more teachers in the kingdom who can teach Aurora. Rhine had a bit of a headache. This difficulty was something he hadn't considered when he first proposed the Super Princess plan. Her Royal Highness the Princess learns too fast and her skill level is too high, there's no one left to teach her. If she continues to stay in the kingdom, Princess Aurora probably won't learn anything more. After a while, we can consider taking Her Royal Highness the Princess out of the kingdom to travel all over the world. And also collect information about Black Witch Maleficent. I wonder which country the culprit who cast the curse ran off to. There hasn't been any information about the Black Witch recently, and prophecies haven't yielded any clues. She must be able to block outside prophecies. Also, contact the king and see if he has any useful information about the Black Witch. Ryan collected his thoughts, looking out the window at the setting sun, which was gradually dimming like blood, filled with anticipation for taking Aurora beyond the kingdom and embarking on an unknown, brand new journey. The crimson sunset glow reflected on the young man's silver hair. By the way, where is Granny Rosa? It should be her turn soon to take over from you and be responsible for looking after Aurora. Where did she go? Ryan looked at the violet fairy beside him. Granny Rosa was the weakest in magic among the 12 witches, and Ryan usually didn't pay much attention to her. Rosa mentioned to me before she left that she had learned the whereabouts of a powerful magical item, and she was going on a treasure hunt during this time. She would return after acquiring that magical item, Violet replied. A powerful magical item. What is it? Ryan asked, puzzled. She didn't say what function that magical item had, only mentioned its general appearance. The item's appearance seems to be. The violet fairy lowered her head, recalling. A tinderbox. Tinderbox. The familiar term instantly awakened Ryan's memories. Quick, call her back. Ryan recalled the classic Andersen fairy tale, the tinderbox, sometimes also called, the soldier and the tinderbox. In this story, an ordinary soldier, with the help of a witch, obtained gold and a magical tinderbox from a tree hollow. However, the soldier did not hand over the tinderbox to the witch as agreed. Instead, he killed the witch who had revealed the secret to him, keeping the tinderbox for himself. Afterward, relying on the tinderbox's magic, he gained wealth, killed the king, became the new king, and married the king's daughter, a beautiful princess confined deep within the palace. Its plot, one might say, is a standard, underdogs rise to power after finding a golden finger, scenario, and the ending was as expected. And now, the witch going to find the tinderbox was Granny Rosa. I've seen a dangerous future. Granny Rosa might be in danger. Ryan said seriously. But she's already been gone for some time, we might not catch up. Violet Fairy's face was clouded with worry. More than half a day ago. On a road at the kingdom's border. A hunched, white-haired old witch looked at a tree hollow by the roadside and shouted. Did you get the tinderbox? This elderly witch was none other than Granny Rosa. This 173-year-old old witch had lived in the forest for a long time, leading a reclusive life, rarely appearing in public before the kingdom's populace. Only other witches and the royalty and nobles knew her. Among the 13 good witches in the kingdom, Rosa's magic was the least suited for combat. But she also had her strengths. She could occasionally hear strange whispers containing useful knowledge. Not long ago, the whispers told Granny Rosa a secret, involving a hidden chamber left by an ancient legendary sorcerer and a powerful magical item within it, the tinderbox. This hidden chamber was guarded by 3 magical and terrifying magical creatures, and the tinderbox was the tool to control them, its value far exceeding all the gold and silver in the chamber, truly a priceless treasure. Princess Aurora is destined to become a valiant rider, and ordinary warhorses cannot withstand her combat. The magical creatures summoned by the tinderbox are perfectly suited to be Her Highness's mounts. Ha ha ha, I never thought that an old thing like me, who has lived for hundreds of years with no particular strengths, would also contribute to defeating Black Witch Maleficent. Once I get the tinderbox, I'll give it to Aurora as a gift for her 10th birthday. Oh, I wonder how happy she'll be when she receives this gift. Granny Rosa fantasized about giving the tinderbox to Aurora and suddenly laughed. Her wrinkles, squeezed together by her smile, deepened, like the etchings left by the passage of time. In her mind, Aurora's beautiful face appeared, and the girl's wonderful singing voice, like the sound of nature. Aurora's enchanting, irresistible voice was the gift she personally gave to the little princess at her baptism ceremony 10 years ago. The voice in her ear also told Granny Rosa the method to pass this hidden chamber, which involved a peculiar magical ritual. As long as on a day with the correct astrological alignment, she found the first person dressed as a soldier on this road and gave him a magically enchanted blue checkered apron, the magical creatures guarding the chamber would remain docile, allowing her to take the money and the tinderbox without hindrance. Of course, Granny Rosa wouldn't let others help for nothing. As long as the tinderbox could be obtained, all the money in the tree hollow could be given to the soldier. The gold in the tree hollow is definitely a windfall for an ordinary soldier. He can live a very good life, eat very good food, live in a very good house, and then use the remaining money to marry a like-minded wife, have his own family and children, and live a carefree life. From beneath the tree hollow came rustling sounds, occasionally interspersed with the soldier's exclamations and laughter. It seemed everything was proceeding smoothly, Granny Rosa thought. Just then, the soldier's voice came from the bottom of the tree hollow. I got the tinderbox, pull me up quickly. Granny Rosa pulled the soldier out. The soldier's pockets, boots, knapsack, and hat were all filled with gold and silver coins. All right, thank you, handsome and strong soldier. Now all this gold is yours, hand over the tinderbox to me. Granny Rosa smiled broadly. The next second, Granny Rosa's eyes widened. The soldier's longsword pierced her chest. As a 173-year-old, Rosa was too slow, she didn't even have time to react. The soldier forcefully pulled out the longsword. Crimson blood gushed out like a fountain, hot as fire. This old witch cares so much about this tinderbox, it must be a good thing. Now it's mine. The soldier laughed loudly. Then, carrying the tinderbox and money, humming a cheerful tune, he headed straight for the city. In a pool of blood, the 173-year-old old witch's mouth hung open, still not recovered from the shock of the sudden attack. Her eyes bulged, wider than they had ever been. In her pupils, the soldier's retreating figure was reflected, and she watched helplessly as he walked further and further away with the tinderbox. She hadn't expected the soldier to be so insatiably greedy. The soldier walked further and further, muttering softly as he went. If what that ended prisoner said is true, and the kingdom is really cursed, and disaster will strike in a few years, then I can only enjoy it for a year or two, and then I'll have to start planning my escape from this doomed country. 10 minutes later. Once certain the soldier was completely gone, the old witch, who was lying in a pool of blood and should have died, suddenly opened her eyes again. Good, good, he didn't discover that I, this old woman whose chest was pierced, am still alive. Granny Rosa shifted her body, and a scarecrow fell out from under her witch's robe. The scarecrow's chest was pierced, as if a miniature sword had once gone through him. Thankfully, I had a substitute to take most of the damage, preventing the injury from being fatal. Granny Rosa struggled to prop herself up with her elbows, trying to stand up sideways, but unexpectedly failed. Cough, cough. The old woman coughed up a large amount of blood. The old woman tried again and again to support herself to get up, or to concentrate her energy to summon wild wolves to drag herself away, or to summon ravens to bring healing herbs. But all attempts failed due to her terrible physical condition. Twilight deepened, and the moon and stars rose. Under the moonlight, Granny Rosa, lying in the middle of the road, shivered in the desolate cold wind. With each biting gust of evening wind, the old woman would tremble a few times. I clearly survived, am I going to freeze to death here? Thinking of such an ironic ending, Granny Rosa suddenly felt a bit desolate. I should have known to call Violet Fairy or Sir Rhine. I really shouldn't have come out alone. Wait, Sir Rhine, that's right. Suddenly, hope rekindled in Granny Rosa's cloudy eyes. The old woman turned her head, looked at the bright moon in the sky, opened her lips, and recited the names passed down in countless legends. Sage beyond the world, prophet who knows the future, wizard of miracles and wishes. Before long, young Rhine, dressed in a pure white classical magician's attire, and the valiant girl with golden hair, swiftly appeared. Granny Rosa. Aurora, seeing Granny Rosa severely injured and unable to move, rushed forward. Teacher, please quickly heal Granny Rosa. Who injured Granny so badly? Rhine also quickly cast a healing spell, covering Granny Rosa with pure white light. After recovering some strength, Granny Rosa briefly recounted her recent encounter. That was truly a rude, barbaric, and greedy soldier. No, he doesn't deserve to be a soldier, he's a complete bandit. Aurora fumed. A faint, almost imperceptible spark of anger ignited in her clear eyes. It's a pity I don't know where that soldier went. If I meet him, I will definitely avenge Granny Rosa with my own hands. After killing the old witch, the soldier entered the city with all the money and the tinderbox. This city was the capital of the country, solemn and beautiful. The soldier checked into a luxurious grand hotel, took the most comfortable room, ordered his favorite food, changed out of his ridiculed old leather boots, and bought new boots and new clothes. The ragged soldier no longer existed, all that remained was a refreshed gentleman. People at the hotel often gathered in the bar on the first floor, discussing the big and small affairs of the city, some of which were true and some were rumors, many of them related to the king or the royal family. Today, the topic of conversation was the king's daughter, the princess of Rose Kingdom. It was said that she was an exceptionally beautiful woman, blessed with many wonderful gifts by witches. Have you heard that legend about Her Royal Highness the Princess? One person in the pub said. It is said that our princess of Rose Kingdom is a little beauty who has gathered all good blessings. Thus the topic was brought up. The guests in the hotel, one after another, recounted the legends they had heard about this beautiful princess. The soldier was very interested in this topic, put down his ale, and pricked up his ears to listen. Legend has it that 10 years ago, when the princess was born, not only foreign guests came, but all the witches and magicians in the kingdom also came to bestow blessings upon the newborn princess. The first blessing endowed the princess with peerless beauty that could overthrow cities and nations, and the second blessing endowed the princess with a captivating, heavenly voice. As for the other blessings, no one knew. Some said the princess was granted exquisite dancing skills. Some said the princess was given the kindest, gentlest, golden heart. In any case, everyone knew that Her Royal Highness the Princess must have gathered all the good qualities in the world. Where can one see the princess? The soldier's curiosity was piqued, and he asked the people chatting. He knew that with his past status, he was certainly not worthy of approaching the princess. But now he was no longer a soldier, but a noble, wealthy gentleman. Oh my goodness. You actually want to see the princess? What are you saying? The bartender looked surprised. Had this gentleman never understood the situation of the kingdom's princess before? Everyone in high society should know. A series of hushed sounds rose. No one can see the princess. Everyone in the pub said in unison. The princess lives in the deepest part of the royal palace, in a copper-cast palace, and only the king and queen can enter that secret place. I also heard that many foreign princes learned that Rose Kingdom had a princess who gathered all the good qualities in the world, but was imprisoned deep in the palace. So, those princes climbed into the royal palace in the dead of night, just wanting a glimpse of the legendary beauty of the princess. Unfortunately, all the princes who came to adventure failed. No one could see the princess, not a single person. The soldier grew more and more puzzled, and more curious as he listened. Why would the king lock the princess deep in the palace? I don't know, it's said to avoid some terrible prophecy. One popular saying is that on the day of the princess's birth, a witch prophesied that Her Royal Highness would die suddenly and tragically when she grew up, which is why the king had to protect her. No, the version I heard was this. The princess would marry an ordinary person without noble blood. This was unbearable for the king. Who told you that? How is it different from what I know? Everyone answered, one after another. A princess whose beauty is unmatched in the world, gathering all the good qualities of humanity, yet she's locked deep in the palace. This is too much of a waste. I really want to see her. The soldier thought. The soldier was living very happily now. He had money, indulged in fine food and drink, and made many dubious friends. These friends praised him as a generous person. The soldier liked to hear such compliments. He enjoyed the feeling of being respected and admired. Anyone who praised him would receive a small bag of gold coins as a reward. However, living the life of a rich man did not satisfy the soldier. Less than a week after moving into the hotel, the soldier grew tired of it and felt he should find something new and exciting to change this bland life. This particular night was exceptionally dark. The soldier took out the tinderbox, the very one the witch had guided him to obtain under the tree hole, and struck it against the flint, intending to light a candle for illumination and fire. Bang! Amidst the flickering sparks, the door opened by itself. A copper-colored dog with eyes the size of teacups appeared out of thin air in front of him. It was the dog he had seen inside the tree. The soldier was terrified. He wasn't carrying the witch's blue apron now. No, don't eat me. Unexpectedly, the dog lowered its head and respectfully said, "My master, what are your commands?" The soldier was startled at first, then suddenly understood something. "Get me some money." the soldier said, trying his luck. With a whoosh, the dog disappeared. After a while, with another whoosh, the dog returned in front of him, carrying a large bag of money in its mouth. That's amazing. After several tests, the soldier understood that this was a magical tinderbox that could summon the 3 large dogs from the tree hole to serve him. Striking it once, twice, or thrice could summon 3 different dogs, respectively. All the dogs obeyed his commands as the tinderbox's master. God bless me. I'm not an ordinary person now. I have a magical tinderbox and 3 magical dogs loyal to me. The soldier couldn't help but feel elated. It was late at night, and the soldier once again harbored the desire to see the princess. Others can't see the beautiful princess, but can't I? Note: in the Tinderbox story, the description of the dog's sizes is very strange. The smallest dog's eyes are as big as a teacup, the medium-sized dog's eyes are as big as a water wheel, and the largest dog's eyes are comparable to the Round Tower in Copenhagen. The latter's size would be considered enormous even in an Ultraman set. However, in the actual story, the dog's sizes don't feel that large, they seem more like the size of ordinary beasts like lions or elephants. For example, the soldier can move the dog onto an apron. Furthermore, if the dog were truly a giant monster from an Ultraman set, summoning such a large creature in the city would have led to its discovery long before the soldier could kidnap the princess. This text assumes that, eyes as big as the Round Tower, is an exaggerated description, and the largest dog's size is roughly equivalent to a house. Of course, for ancient armies, this would still be a sufficiently terrifying giant beast. The soldier acted as soon as he thought of it. He took out the tinderbox and struck a spark. With a whoosh, the dog with eyes like teacups immediately jumped out. The soldier commanded the big dog. I want to see the kingdom's princess. Can you bring her here? The big dog nodded obediently and immediately ran out the door, disappearing into the deep night in the blink of an eye. Seeing that the big dog didn't refuse the order, the soldier was both nervous and excited. Ha ha ha, the treasure left by that old witch is really a good thing. Killing her and snatching this tinderbox was truly the correct choice. But a few seconds later, the soldier suddenly discovered a problem. Did the big dog turn left after leaving the door just now? But isn't the royal palace supposed to be to the right? Turning left after leaving the door is the direction out of the city. The direction is completely wrong. This dog must have gone the wrong way. A beast is a beast, it really isn't very smart. The soldier covered his head, very annoyed. Heaven knows what this dog, which went the wrong way, would bring back. Outside the royal capital, in the suburbs. Inside a wooden house in a small town, 2 witches were talking. This isn't good. Aurora is gone. She was just in bed. Do you know what happened? I don't know either. I was sleeping soundly. According to the agreement, the 12 witches would send 2 people each time to care for Aurora with Lord Rhine, while the other 10 would act freely. They would rotate every few days. These few days, it was their turn to be responsible. And precisely tonight, Aurora mysteriously disappeared. The 2 witches could only knock on Rhine's door and ask for help from this powerful kingdom's sage, hoping he would use divination to locate Aurora's whereabouts. Lord Rhine, Aurora is gone. I got up at night, wanting to quietly open the door to look at her, and found that Aurora was gone. When they pushed open Rhine's door, however, they found the space behind the door was empty, with only the biting night wind blowing through. This isn't good, Lord Rhine is also gone. The 2 witches hugged each other. I heard that there are child traffickers active nearby. Could the princess have been kidnapped? The first witch was extremely nervous and offered a guess. If the princess was kidnapped by child traffickers, then it would be dangerous. The second witch looked out at the dense night, her face filled with worry. Wait, did I hear correctly? Are you saying Aurora is in danger? The first witch suddenly turned her head, her expression incredibly surprised. Of course not. The second witch strongly retorted, correcting her wording, I mean, the kidnappers who kidnapped the princess are in danger. Oh, that's true. The first witch immediately found it reasonable and nodded. Which child trafficker would be so foolish as to kidnap other children but specifically kidnap Princess Aurora? Even though she was still just a 10-year-old child, in the entire Rose Kingdom, there was no warrior more capable than her. The 2 quickly discussed for a while and discovered another problem. Wait, did this kidnapper also kidnap Lord Rhine? Then wouldn't the kidnapper be in even more danger? Yes, we should hurry and find them. Otherwise, heaven knows what could happen. To the soldier's surprise, after waiting for a long time, the dog really came back carrying a girl. On the big dog's back was a blonde girl who seemed to be asleep. She wore simple clothes no different from a commoner's, yet she was as beautiful as someone from a dream. The soldier merely glanced at her sleeping face and felt as if his soul had been drawn into it, as if his spirit had been cleansed. Oh my, anyone can see she's a true princess. The dog actually brought back the kingdom's princess. I thought it had gone the wrong way. This soldier was extremely excited. The soldier looked left and right, confirming that it was late at night, no one was around, and the princess was still sound asleep. He leaned in, wanting to secretly kiss her before she woke up. Who are you? What do you want? Suddenly, Aurora opened her eyes, raised her hand to block the soldier's impudent action, gently pushed him away, her eyes flashing with vigilance and hostility. As a vigilant warrior, Aurora had already woken up. But she wanted to see where the strange creature that took her would bring her, so she pretended to be asleep the whole way, peeking through a slit in her eyes. The soldier greeted Aurora, bowing courteously. Oh, beautiful princess, hello. He wasn't afraid at all despite his recent attempt to act disrespectfully towards the princess. The soldier believed the princess had been imprisoned deep within the royal palace, inside a secluded palace building, for many years, and probably hadn't seen any men, her father, the king, being the only exception. She might not even have seen many people. He was clearly one of the few living people the princess had ever seen. The soldier liked this kind of ignorant beauty. It meant he could easily play the role of a mentor in her life, teaching her social interaction and common knowledge of the world. Aurora frowned slightly. She was trying to judge whether beautiful princess was just a playboy's pickup line. I don't know you. Aurora climbed off the dog, standing alertly, her green eyes sharp and cold. The blonde girl's voice was exceptionally pleasant, like a nightingale's song, but her bright, sharp gaze made the soldier feel a little numb. At this moment, the soldier even doubted again whether the dog had kidnapped the kingdom's princess. He believed that a princess shouldn't have such eyes, at least not as he imagined. It doesn't matter whether she's a real princess or not. The soldier thought again, even a true princess couldn't be more charming than the girl in front of me. As soon as he saw the blonde girl, he had already fallen hopelessly in love with her. Who are you? Why did you bring me here? Aurora looked around, confirming that she was in a hotel within the royal capital. Unfortunately, because she was captured while sleeping, her personal sword and armor were not with her. She could still fight with her fists and feet, but it wasn't very convenient, and she couldn't guarantee to take down a lion or tiger in one go. Aurora's gaze quickly shifted, landing on the sword hanging on the wall. She didn't know that it was the very sword that had pierced Granny Rose's chest. The soldier noticed Aurora's eyes darting around the room, his heart pounding, almost leaping from his chest. Oh, she's such a beautiful girl, even her curious glances are breathtakingly beautiful. She's curiously examining my room, the most luxurious room in the hotel. If she really is a princess, I wonder how this compares to the palace she used to live in. Even if it's not as good, this is a brand new place. For the princess, this must be very fresh. The soldier thought happily. He stood up straight, ready to play the role of an excellent life mentor, trying to make his tone and posture seem like those of a true gentleman. As early as when he ordered the dog to capture the princess, the soldier had prepared for the princess waking up from her dream, and had thought about what to talk about with her. Beautiful girl. I want to tell you a secret. This kingdom will be destroyed in 6 or 7 years at most. A terrifying disaster will strike in a few years, and by then, whether it's the king and queen, the prominent nobles, or the farmers in the fields, all will die. And I am the hero who has come to save you. My dog has magical power and can protect us well. We can leave this kingdom together and then hold a grand wedding in another kingdom. In the empty room next to the hotel. Holding a silver mirror, Ryan observed the room next door through divination magic and was slightly surprised when he heard the soldier's words. I didn't expect him to talk about that. This was a plot point not present in the original fairy tale. Undoubtedly, what the soldier said, the disaster that would destroy the kingdom, was precisely the curse laid by Black Witch Maleficent. This news should have been sealed off, yet he knew this secret. Indeed, in this mixed magical world, after his intervention influenced fate, many details would change, and one could not absolutely rely on a transmigrator's knowledge of the future. Rhine composed his thoughts and continued to watch the scene in the silver mirror. Clearly, Rhine was not kidnapped by child traffickers. After Granny Rosa was injured, Rhine had guessed that the soldier would, as in the original, send the dog to the royal palace to kidnap the princess. For this reason, Rhine secretly contacted the king, prepared the royal palace's defenses, and made ready to wait for the rabbit to retrieve the tinderbox. Surprisingly, the dog summoned by this tinderbox actually had some strange perception, discovered that the true princess was not in the palace, ran to the small town outside the royal capital, and took Aurora away. Aurora herself didn't even know she was a princess. Of course, Rhine had also considered the possibility of the dog coming for the true Aurora and had made preparations in advance. As the dog abducted Aurora, Rhine also followed, coming all the way to the hotel where the soldier was staying, observing in secret. Of all the princesses to kidnap, he kidnapped Aurora. He's really unlucky. Rhine looked at the arrogant soldier in the mirror, trying to suppress his laughter. He had confirmed with Granny Rosa that the magical creatures summoned by the tinderbox were indeed considered monsters to ordinary people. But in front of this invulnerable princess, who possessed strange strength, they were no different from a little chihuahua. Kidnapped in the dead of night and told by a stranger that her kingdom was on the verge of collapse, Aurora showed no sign of fear. Despite being wary of the soldier before her, Aurora maintained her elegance and politeness, her words and actions displaying a maturity unbefitting her age, completely unlike a pure and ignorant little princess who had never left the palace. Why do you say the kingdom will be destroyed in a few years? Do you have any evidence? She asked. The soldier smiled. You might have heard of Enda, our neighboring country that always covets our land and resources, a powerful military empire, a tyrannical bandit nation. I used to serve in the army. A few months ago, my companions and I captured an Enda noble. He had been invited as a foreign guest to a grand event in our kingdom over a decade ago. According to him, at that event, Black Witch Maleficent cursed our Rose Kingdom, vowing to destroy it in over 10 years. From now, it's estimated there are only 5 or 6 years left. By then, the kingdom's land will be overgrown with thorns and thistles, and everyone will die miserably, bleeding from all 7 orifices. However, the king deceived us, he deceived all of us. He did not tell the secret to the people. Evidently, the soldier did not know that Aurora, standing before him, was the source of the curse. That noble also said that Enda was considering revealing the secret and informing our people of the truth of the curse. Once everyone knows the secret of the curse, the entire kingdom will fall into chaos. Everything will become a mess. But there's no need to be afraid, I can protect you and take you away from the kingdom beforehand. At this point, the soldier tried his best to straighten his back and display his masculinity. To be honest, the soldier was half believing, half doubting the captive noble's words. But this didn't stop him from presenting it as an established fact to the princess before him. He believed that a terrible crisis would make the ignorant girl panic, and this was his chance to win the princess's heart. Even if the girl didn't believe his words at all, he had the tinderbox and could forcefully take her with him. Anyway, there would be plenty of time in the future to build a relationship. After listening to the soldier's impassioned speech, Aurora's expression remained as steady as a mountain, still looking half believing, half doubting. The soldier felt a little impatient and added. It was the incompetent royalty and nobles who angered the terrifying Black Witch, yet we are the ones who must suffer the disaster. Let me be king, I will do better, and I would never dare to offend a powerful witch. Unexpectedly, this time Aurora retorted righteously. Even if everything you say is true, the culprit should be Black Witch Maleficent, who brought the curse upon the kingdom. If the king committed any crime, it should be the crime of cowardice. He should declare war on the Black Witch, even if it means using the entire army of the country and hiring all the mages he can find, he must kill the culprit and end the curse. Even if everyone dies in battle, it's better than sitting idly by and waiting for the end of the world. For 10 years, Aurora, raised jointly by Rhine and the 12 witches, deeply loved this land and this country. She enjoyed listening to the gurgling of streams, loved the human activity in the alleys of the towns, would play ball with the children in the town, and no one could beat her. explored the kingdom's long history from books with scholars who were her teachers, and was even transported to many famous scenic spots within the kingdom by her magical mentor, Rhine. Although she wasn't sure if what the stranger said was true, hearing that the kingdom was about to fall into chaos and be completely destroyed in a few years, she still felt a deep anger from the bottom of her heart. The soldier was stunned. He hadn't expected that this girl, beautiful as a flower and whose height didn't even reach his waist, would retort him with such a stern tone. She even spoke terrifying things like, gathering the nation's strength to kill the Black Witch, and, even dying in battle is better than sitting idly by and waiting for death. The soldier felt a hint of unease. This stunningly beautiful blonde girl carried a dangerous aura that made him fear. How dare she retort him? How dare she say such things? Wasn't she the princess who had been hidden deep in the palace since birth, never having touched the outside world? No, it shouldn't be like this. She should have obediently listened, trembled with fear after hearing him describe the kingdom's future, and nestled into his arms. Then he would stroke her soft blonde hair and comfort the trembling princess in his embrace. The soldier felt a hint of displeasure. He was an adult, a soldier who had experienced life and death struggles. A mere little girl had no right to reason with him. This is for your own good, beautiful princess, if you truly are a princess. When the kingdom truly falls into great chaos, you will understand. After speaking, the soldier commanded the giant dogs beside him, whose eyes were the size of teacups. Take this girl and leave here. The soldier had used the dogs to deal with bandits on the road and knew very well how terrifying these 3 dogs were. They were immensely strong, their skin was tougher than rock, and their bones were stronger than steel. The soldier even suspected that just 3 dogs would be enough to defeat the king's guard. An ordinary army would instantly collapse in morale upon encountering 3 such monsters. If he wished, he could become the new king at any time. The dogs opened their mouths, as large as vats, and lunged at the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aurora, intending to forcefully drag her away. Unexpectedly, this little girl, whose height was less than the soldier's waist, moved with extraordinary agility, skillfully dodging the dog's movements with a swift sidestep to the left. Aurora's movements were so fast that they left afterimages in the air. Ah! The soldier's body trembled in surprise. The girl's rolling movement was so practiced, as if she had rehearsed it thousands of times. Even he couldn't see it clearly. What was going on? Wasn't she the beautiful princess? Why did she have such outstanding skills? As an out-and-out soldier, he knew very well that neither he nor his comrades in the team possessed such skills. It's nothing, just a little girl. At most, she's a bit agile. Am I going to be afraid of a little girl? The soldier comforted himself while instinctively retreating, putting distance between himself and Aurora. The girl's movements were practiced, like a seasoned warrior, using the momentum of her roll to the left to smoothly press against the wall. The soldier's eyes widened, and he suddenly understood the blonde girl's target. His sword was hanging on the wall. The next second, with a crisp drawing sound, the sharp sword on the wall was pulled out. Aurora stood holding the sword. Nothing gave her more security than the weapon in her hand. The dog, larger than a lion, did not forget its previous command and lunged at Aurora once again. The blonde girl moved, her sharp sword slicing through the air, making a piercing whooshing sound. In just an instant, a brief instant too fast for the soldier's naked eye to catch, the dog fell, collapsing in a pool of blood. The severely wounded dog trembled and struggled on the ground, letting out pained whimpers. Everyone in the entire inn, no, the entire street, was awakened. Scalding blood gushed out like a fountain, instantly staining the entire luxurious room crimson. How is this possible? The soldier could hardly believe his eyes, even wondering if he was dreaming. Since summoning the dogs with the tinderbox, he had never seen the 3 dogs shed even a single drop of blood. These 3 large dogs were almost like wish-granting monsters, capable of doing anything. Aurora stood in the dog's whimpering pool of blood, the blood already dyeing her pure white nightgown crimson. The blood-soaked blonde girl walked slowly, her golden hair and beautiful half-face already scarlet, blood dripping from the long sword in her right hand, yet her expression remained as composed as before, as if nothing had happened. This eerie and chilling scene transformed into a sharp blade of fear, deeply piercing the soldier's heart. Monster. This was a monster in a girl's skin. Oh my God, what kind of creature did the dogs catch? The soldier ran out of the inn in a panic, rubbing the tinderbox several times, his hands trembling from fear, almost unable to hold the treasure steady. Whoosh! Whoosh! The other two large dogs appeared in the night. One dog's eyes were as large as a carriage wheel, and the other dog's eyes were as large as a round tower top. Tinderbox, you are indeed the soldier who went back on his word and injured Granny Rosa. As soon as she saw the soldier pull out the tinderbox, Aurora immediately understood, she understood everything. The soldier before her was the culprit who attacked Granny Rosa and stole the tinderbox. Aurora chased after him, her gaze sharper than ever. The soldier was afraid, completely afraid, he had never been so utterly terrified, not even on the battlefield. This sharp killing intent was almost pressed against his back, making his undershirt damp with sweat. She's going to kill me, absolutely. She must want to kill me. The soldier fled frantically towards the end of the street, into the depths of the night, almost crying. Dogs, attack her, protect me. He ordered the dogs as he ran, as if the monster in the girl's skin would devour him if he was even a step late. The two dogs lunged at Aurora simultaneously. The dog with eyes as large as a water wheel bit Aurora's shoulder, and this time the girl did not dodge. But it was useless, the sharp teeth couldn't even leave a scratch on the girl's skin. The dog with eyes as large as a round tower top also bit Aurora's body with its teeth, but this was equally useless. Both dogs used all their strength, trying to bite through the girl's body, but it was like biting something harder than iron. Crack! The teeth of both large dogs broke simultaneously. Aurora calmly raised her sword and thrust it at the giant dog that had bitten her. Her swordsmanship was divine, even better than the kingdom's top master swordsman, and everyone who saw her wield a sword would praise it as the finest swordsmanship. These two dogs were bigger, stronger, and fiercer than the first, but the trained Aurora was stronger than them. The cold gleam of the sword flashed under the moon, and in just a few moves, Aurora defeated these two terrifying monsters. The two dogs, dragging their profusely bleeding bodies, fled in panic. The blood they shed dyed an entire street red, staining the bakeries, alchemy workshops, luxurious inns, and people's homes. The blood flowed into the river, turning the river red as well. From then on, the capital had a street filled with red houses. The soldier ran and ran, sprinting through the moonlit streets. Phew, 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 I'm exhausted. I escaped, didn't I? I should have gotten rid of that monster, right? The soldier recalled what had just happened. It was like a dream. What a beautiful girl she was, he thought, why was she so terrifying? Temporarily out of danger, the affection and desire he had forgotten due to fear surged back, and the soldier suddenly felt that he shouldn't have run so fast, so far. He even had an urge to turn back. Perhaps that girl can still be reasoned with. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. If I could just be with her, that would be perfect. Just as the soldier thought he was safe and slowly stopped, a hemp rope on the side of the street suddenly came alive, pouncing with a whoosh and binding him tightly. The hemp rope twisted like a snake, as if endowed with life, and no matter how the soldier struggled, he couldn't break free. Quite an excellent performance. To be able to defeat those three dogs, you are already a capable warrior, Aurora. Rhine appeared from nowhere, applauding Aurora. He hadn't captured the soldier beforehand because he wanted to witness Aurora's growth with his own eyes. However, Aurora's face showed no joy of victory. Mentor, is the story that stranger told just now true? Has the kingdom really been cursed? The blonde girl wiped the blood from her face. Rhine nodded gently. Yes. This was something Aurora would have to be told sooner or later. What truly worried Rhine was that the soldier had said that the hostile neighboring country, Enda, was preparing to reveal the truth of the curse. Fear is a more terrifying weapon than swords. If people knew that the country would be destroyed in a few years, the entire kingdom would surely fall into chaos, order would cease to exist, farmers would abandon their fields, and soldiers would be unwilling to fight. Enda could then seize the opportunity to plunder everything. Aurora sighed again, with a hint of regret. It's a pity that the culprit who almost killed Granny Rosa escaped. No, I've caught him. He will receive the judgment he deserves, Rhine said. Saying that, Rhine looked back at the hotel room. On the floor, the heavily wounded, howling dog had disappeared. It was clearly still alive, but its whereabouts were unknown, as mysterious as its appearance. It would only reappear when summoned by its master again. From Rhine, the king and queen learned of the soldiers' attempt to abduct their daughter. They were extremely angry, arrested that soldier, and locked him in a cell. The soldier was imprisoned in the cell, which was dark and stuffy. The other prisoners in the same cell all said, "Friend, you'll be hanged tomorrow." The soldier was terrified upon hearing this. He searched his entire body, trying to find the life-saving tinderbox, but found it wasn't on him. "Oh my, this is truly unfortunate. I remember now, when I was tied up by the rope, the tinderbox fell out. It rolled into the ditch by the roadside." The soldier despaired. The next morning, at dawn, the soldier saw through the small window with iron bars that many people were pouring out of the city, wanting to watch him being hanged. He heard the thunderous drumming, saw the king's guard marching, and saw the king and queen sitting in a magnificent four-wheeled carriage. Large crowds were all heading towards the outskirts of the city. Even the king came. "Did I really kidnap the princess? No way. But the creature I saw didn't seem human at all. Could it be that the king imprisoned the princess because he didn't want people to discover that the princess was actually a monster?" The soldier made various guesses. By now, he was increasingly confused about the truth of the matter. At this moment, the soldier saw through the iron window that among the people running towards the city outskirts, there was a boy in a hood and cloak running particularly fast, his hood covering his face. The soldier looked out from behind the iron bars. "Hey, little fellow, why the hurry? There's nothing good to see until I arrive." He then tempted the boy. "If you fetch something for me, I'll give you 4 copper coins. But you must swear, you must run as fast as you possibly can." The soldier told the hooded boy which street and which ditch the tinderbox had fallen into. The hooded boy then ran towards the street where the soldier had previously lived. "Please bless me, that the tinderbox hasn't been picked up yet." The soldier knelt on the ground in the dark, stuffy cell, praying. Before long, the hooded boy ran back, much faster than the soldier had expected. As soon as the soldier saw the tinderbox in the boy's hand, he was so happy he almost jumped. "Here, this is your tinderbox. Give me your copper coins." The soldier happily pulled out the copper coins and gave them to the boy, then put the tinderbox into his pocket. "Ha ha ha. My tinderbox is still here, it's still here. As long as I have the tinderbox and the 3 dogs, the king can't execute me." However, what the soldier didn't see was that as the boy walked away from the iron bars, turning his back to him, a strange curve suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth, revealing a hint of a smile. "Your wish has been granted." A few strands of silver hair peeked out from under the hood, gently swaying in the morning breeze. Outside the city, a large gallows had been erected, surrounded by the king's guard and many common people. The king and queen faced the jury, sitting on 2 magnificent thrones in the best position to view the execution. The judge loudly pronounced the soldiers 2 crimes. One was attacking an innocent person with a sword, and the other was kidnapping and attempting to molest an underage girl. The former seemed to refer to the attack on the old witch, although the soldier didn't know how he was discovered. The soldier was already standing on the execution ladder. When the executioner was about to put the noose around his neck, the soldier suddenly spoke loudly. "I've heard there's a tradition in this kingdom, that a condemned criminal, before receiving punishment, can make one request. If it's a reasonable request, his wish should be granted." "Indeed, there is such a thing," said the king from the stand. "Right now, I really want to have a puff of smoke. Please, merciful and just king, I truly want to smoke a cigarette. And this will be my last cigarette in the world." Surely the king wouldn't refuse even this request. The king agreed to the soldier's request. So, the soldier reached into his pocket, pulled out the tinderbox, and rapidly struck it several times. His face was overflowing with uncontrollable laughter. The soldier saw the future, yes, an incredibly beautiful future. All 3 dogs would jump out to save him, one with eyes as big as teacups, another with eyes as big as watermill wheels, and one whose eyes were bigger than the first 2 combined. They might have been injured, or perhaps miraculously healed. But whether wounded or not, they were terrifying, powerful monsters. Those dogs would pounce on the judge, the jury, and the king's guard, biting off their legs, tearing off their noses, throwing them into the sky, tossing them dozens of meters high to make them all fall into a bloody pulp. The king and queen would suffer the same fate. He could choose to let the dogs eat the king and queen, or choose to spare their lives, if he wanted to show his mercy. People would praise his mercy. The surviving guards and the surrounding common people would fear him, support him, and take him to sit in the king's four-wheeled carriage, with the 3 dogs guarding him beside the carriage. He would become the new king of the country. As for that blonde girl, who he didn't know if she was a princess, she's truly a terrifying monster, but I swear, she's also the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. The soldier thought God knew where she was now. If possible, the soldier hoped to re-establish a good relationship with the girl. After all, he was now a noble king, and no one was more suitable to be his queen than that girl. They would have a grand wedding that lasted 8 days and 8 nights, and the 3 dogs would also attend their wedding, their eyes staring wider than ever before. After becoming the new king, he would enjoy himself for 2 or 3 years, and then, before the cursed disaster erupted, he would escape the kingdom with his queen. He had 3 magical dogs, and he would live well no matter which country he went to. The fantasy ended. The soldier's mouth opened, the momentary dream almost making him drool. His gaze was fixed on the tinderbox in his hand. Strike, strike, strike. He struck it again and again. But nothing happened. Not a single dog appeared. Why? How could this be? Why is my tinderbox not working? The soldier trembled violently with fear. He even suspected that everything he had experienced this past month, including the magical tinderbox and the 3 dogs, was just a morning illusion, an unrealistic fantasy, just like the fantasy he had just had. Your tinderbox seems to have gotten wet, it won't light. Let me light your cigarette for you. The executioner smiled. He pulled out a tinderbox, the most ordinary kind, without magic, and lit the soldier's cigarette for him. His cigarette was lit, but the soldier's legs went weak, and he fell to the ground with a thud. He rarely spoke such a genuine truth. This was indeed the last cigarette he would ever smoke in his life. The execution proceeded as usual. The executioner put the noose around the soldier's neck and hoisted him into the air. The onlookers cheered. People praised the king and queen, the judge, and the jury for giving a deserving villain in the kingdom the judgment he deserved. The soldier, hanging in the air, saw that among the common people watching the spectacle and cheering, there were a few friends he had known when he was a wealthy man at the inn. A few days ago, these friends were praising the soldier's generosity, hoping to get an extra silver coin as a reward from the parvenu. Clearly, now, his friends didn't feel that their actions were inappropriate at all, because they no longer needed to flatter and please the soldier. The rope around his neck was extremely tight, and the soldier struggled with his legs in the air. His eyes were indeed wider than ever before, almost as big as teacups. Outside the city, in the crowd of onlookers, a silver-haired boy in a hood watched the hanged soldier from afar. It seems your tinderbox is damp and unusable. The boy was, of course, Rhine. After controlling the animated rope to bind the soldier, he took the soldier's tinderbox. Later, when the soldier came to him for help retrieving the tinderbox, he merely pretended to walk away for a moment, then returned and gave the tinderbox back. As a magician who granted wishes, Rhine did literally fulfill the soldier's wish, but twisted a small part of it. What he returned was a damp tinderbox that had been soaked in water. As soon as he got the tinderbox, Rhine performed a divination on this famous magic item, confirming that a damp tinderbox would temporarily be ineffective for a period of time. Alas, why do I seem like a devil from a story, exploiting the loopholes in people's hearts to literally grant wishes, yet twisting them? The young man muttered self-deprecatingly. The tinderbox that summons 3 dogs, I have retrieved it. Rhine flipped his right hand. With a plop, a cloud of mist emerged, and the tinderbox, which had just been in the soldier's pocket, appeared out of thin air in his palm. Retrieve previously touched items. This was a new magic Rhine learned after fulfilling the soldier's wish to retrieve the tinderbox. This even included items Rhine had touched before learning this magic. It's quite a powerful conceptual ability. The young man thought. Many interesting uses immediately popped into his mind. I don't know what to call it. I'm terrible at naming things. I can't just call it Dromji Instant Summon, can I? Return to sender. That doesn't seem right either, never mind. Rhine shrugged, putting the matter of naming out of his mind. After a while longer, when the damp tinderbox dried out again and regained its original magic, Rhine took the tinderbox and teleported to a deserted wilderness. Rub, 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 1, 2, 3. Rhine rubbed the tinderbox several times, and with a few whooshing sounds, all three dogs appeared, their eyes bigger than the last. The injuries on the dogs had indeed all healed, their fur glistening in the sun, looking not at all like they had been injured. They are indeed magical creatures, their self-healing speed is astonishing. Unlike before, the dogs lay prostrate beside Rhine, both obedient and well-behaved. They seemed to have long forgotten their old master, ready at any time to follow the commands of this new tinderbox owner. These dogs can actually find out that the princess is not in the palace, but in the town outside the royal city. What a marvelous power! Can dogs always sniff out the direction of the target their master designates for them? Whether it's assigning them to find money or something else. This does highlight some characteristics of a dog. I can try it sometime to see how far a target they can find. This tinderbox will definitely have wonderful uses in the future. Aurora's 10th birthday is coming soon. According to Granny Rosa's idea, let's make the tinderbox her gift. The space around Rhine suddenly twisted, his slightly slender figure blurred again, and disappeared into the wilderness. 2 days later, Rhine held a grand birthday celebration for Aurora. The 12 witches all came, just as they had 10 years ago when the girl was born, reuniting once again. They gathered not only to celebrate her birthday but also to quietly discuss when they should tell Aurora about her princess identity and the mission she carried. A mission too heavy for a 10-year-old girl, but it was bound to happen sooner or later. Granny Rosa kissed Aurora's cheek and personally handed the tinderbox to Aurora, just as she had initially envisioned. The aged old witch also thanked Aurora for defeating the soldier who had almost killed her. I heard that on the day of the soldier's execution, almost everyone in the royal city ran out of the city to watch. It was you who made the sinner receive the judgment he deserved. All the witches knew the story of Aurora defeating the 3 large dogs, praising her as an excellent hero, just like those heroes in bardic legends and myths. Aurora was as brave as those heroes, as skilled in martial arts as those heroes, and most importantly, had a heart of gold like those heroes. Aurora, my dear child, you are already a hero capable of standing on your own. Just like in stories, every hero has their own mount. You can rub the tinderbox now and summon magical dogs to be your mounts. Granny Rosa gave Aurora a big hug. Violet Fairy, the leader of the 12 witches, also smiled broadly. Yes, you should try it. It will surely be a beautiful sight. Aurora nodded gently. She and the others went to an open field and rubbed the tinderbox there. Rub, 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 rub. With sounds of whoosh, 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 the 3 dogs appeared one by one. The smallest of them had eyes as big as teacups. Aurora rode on the dog with eyes as big as teacups, guiding it to run across the open field. The other 2 large dogs followed behind the young girl. At first, Aurora's movements were a bit clumsy, but the blessing had endowed her with an impressive physique and astonishing learning ability. Before long, she was as skilled as an experienced rider. What a heroic and spirited sight. The dogs ran joyfully, their eyes wider than ever before. The birthday celebration was about to end. Aurora carefully put away her beloved tinderbox. She seemed to love her birthday gift very much, but there were clearly still some worries and concerns, which she couldn't hide even during the birthday ceremony. What are you worried about, my little Aurora? Granny Rosa asked with concern. Aurora recounted everything the soldier had said after she met him. If what the Enda captive in the soldier's mouth said is true, Enda might soon reveal the truth of the curse. When everyone knows that our Rose Kingdom is cursed, the country will fall into chaos, and it will be a disaster. Moreover, even if the king and the royal family successfully cover up the truth, everything will only get worse. If such a curse truly exists, I've already asked my teacher, he said this curse absolutely exists. When the disaster strikes, there will be no room for remedy. At this moment, Aurora did not look at all like a little girl celebrating her 10th birthday, who should have been enjoying the blooming season. Although her tone still showed immaturity, she was clearly worried about the country and its people. Rhine and the witches exchanged glances, their brows slightly furrowed. Although the king had sealed off the news, the people in the country did not know the full details of the princess's rebirth ceremony or the existence of the curse. However, at that grand banquet 10 years ago, there were also many foreign guests among the attendees. Expecting them to keep a secret was clearly impossible. At this point, Aurora's voice trembled slightly. Her eyes were bright, fixed intently on Rhine. It was only at this moment that the golden-haired young girl realized that her respected teacher, who had taught her valuable knowledge for many years, was no longer much taller than her. Teacher, why do the king and queen want to cover up the truth of the curse? A disaster will befall the Rose Kingdom precisely a few years from now. Since that's the case, shouldn't everyone know? Let every person who has the means to leave the kingdom, regardless of occupation, class, or gender, stay as far away as possible from this cursed land. The girl became more agitated as she spoke, clenching her small fists. Teacher, you once taught me about being human. Since there really is such a curse, shouldn't we, tell everyone the truth, before the enemy country exposes it? The people of Rose Kingdom should have the right to know the truth and leave this cursed land in advance. When she spoke the last sentence, Aurora was practically roaring, with an undeniable authority. The girl's voice, empowered by the blessing, that captivating voice, now seemed to possess magic, making even Rhine's emotions fluctuate. With the blessing's enhancement, Aurora truly was a born orator. Even I, who knows the complete truth, almost agreed with her statement for a moment. Rhine sighed inwardly. Violet Fairy, seeing Aurora so agitated, quickly stepped forward to comfort and explain, telling her the fact that, even if you flee the kingdom, the curse will never die, and at most, you can only live a few more years. Unexpectedly, Rhine made a gesture, stopping Violet Fairy, who was about to explain. The silver-haired magician youth stood up and gently placed his hand on Aurora's shoulder. Aurora, I want to ask you, if one day you were to become the king of this country, replacing the current king, would you do better than him? Aurora nodded vigorously without thinking. Tell me, what would you do? Rhine asked. I would use a sword, and a little bit of magic. I would find the whereabouts of Black Witch Maleficent, gather as many warriors as possible, and then gain the help of you, my teacher, and gather the strength of the entire nation to challenge this culprit, defeat her, and force her to reveal the method to lift the curse. Or, if this curse can be lifted simply by killing the one who cast it, then that would be even better. Rhine's lips curved slightly, revealing a relieved smile. But there are no ifs in the world. Aurora lowered her head. Only the king's child can become king. Then, the little princess's whispered remark almost made the witches lose control of their facial expressions. At this point, even overthrowing the royal family would be useless, it would only make things worse. Rhine raised his hand and gently stroked Aurora's small head, covered by soft golden hair. What you said doesn't require you to be king to do. I can take you now, go abroad, inquire about the whereabouts of Black Witch Maleficent, catch her, and defeat her. Aurora's eyes froze. Us. Can we really defeat the Black Witch by ourselves? In the kingdom, there should be many more valiant warriors than me, and many more excellent magicians like Master, right? She had heard the legend of Black Witch Maleficent before. The legend spent the most space on rendering Maleficent's terror. She was a witch so terrifying she was almost impossible to defeat. Up until now, due to a lack of comparison, Aurora still lacked a sufficient concept of her own strength. She instinctively doubted. Rhine smiled and said, Aurora, you might not know yet, but you are already the most skilled warrior in the kingdom. And I, in fact, am also the most outstanding magician in the kingdom. If, when facing Maleficent back then, Rhine's magical level was only comparable to the Violet Fairy, the most outstanding among the witches, then in these years that Aurora has grown up, after fulfilling the wishes of countless people in the kingdom, Rhine has now gone much further on the path of magic. Rhine paused, then added. Of course, Maleficent is a legendary witch whose magic can shroud the entire kingdom. The current you is still far from enough to defeat the giant dragon she transformed into. But your talent is exceptional, and you will grow many, many times more on your future journey. Light appeared in Aurora's eyes, and she nodded excitedly. At that moment, Rhine felt an unprecedented, sun-like fervent power of wishes. This wish came from Aurora. Okay, Master. Please take me away from the kingdom. I want to become a true hero, find the Black Witch, defeat her, and then return to this country. Seeing that the time was ripe, Rhine added the explanation he had not mentioned earlier. By the way, I made a prophecy. Black Witch Maleficent's curse cannot be avoided even if one escapes the kingdom. Unfortunately, even if I say so, people may not believe it. So it's not a bad thing that the king concealed the truth of the curse. If the common people knew about the curse, the kingdom would fall into great panic and chaos. Aurora suddenly realized, understanding that her previous judgment had been too hasty and impulsive. Violet Fairy smiled and said, "It seems you are about to take Aurora away from the kingdom, seek news of Black Witch Maleficent, and train Aurora into a hero capable of confronting Maleficent on your journey. I wish you both success." This was something everyone had planned early on, so Violet Fairy was not surprised. It seemed that everything had been discussed, and in a few days, everyone could embark on their journey abroad. Just as the witches thought everything was settled, Aurora suddenly spoke. "Wait, Master, we can't leave so soon. Before leaving the kingdom, I still have one last thing to do." That soldier said that Enda is preparing to inform our citizens of the truth about the curse soon. The kingdom will soon fall into chaos. At that time, Enda's army, they should be called bandits, will be able to march straight in, plundering our wealth, our treasures, our cattle and sheep. Since Master said I am the kingdom's greatest warrior, I should lead the army, drive out the invaders, and then set off on our journey. Lead the army. How do you plan to become the commander of the army? How do you make the soldiers obey your orders? From your appearance, you are just a 10-year-old girl. Who would let you wear armor? Or have you already guessed? Rhine's thoughts churned. Master. Aunt Violet, Granny Rosa, everyone. I have a very, very important question, please tell me the answer honestly. Please. Aurora's gaze suddenly became serious, and she politely bowed to Rhine and the witches. Oh, little Aurora, do you have any more questions? Feel free to ask. Granny Rosa showed a kind smile. Aurora swallowed, raised her chin, and asked seriously, word by word. Excuse me, am I the princess of the kingdom? Am I the princess from the rumors, who is supposed to be imprisoned deep in the palace? And you, my master, are you the kingdom's sage from the legends, great magician Rhine, who once served as an advisor to the king for half a year and then mysteriously disappeared? Silence. A deathly silence. Yes. Yes. Rhine nodded gently, his expression unwavering. This was something that had to be told to Aurora sooner or later. Aurora breathed a sigh of relief, a look of gratification on her face. That's great. Otherwise, I would have thought I was a magical weapon created by you for combat. No wonder I was born with such astonishing talent. No wonder I share the same name as the rumored imprisoned princess, although people with the same name are everywhere in the kingdom today. When did you discover your identity? Rhine wanted to ask this but felt it was unnecessary. There were too many signs. The clever Aurora would discover it sooner or later. I heard from people in the tavern, and from children I played ball with, that the king's daughter was trapped in the Copper Palace deep within the palace complex, forever unable to step out. I often thought how lonely she must be, trapped there, all alone, unable to see the outside world. Now I know that this was a lie. She was not imprisoned at all. Aurora spoke to herself, her words filled with endless emotion. The golden-haired girl raised her slender but unusually strong hands and looked at Rhine and the witches again. Master, Granny Witches and Aunts, my talent comes from your blessings, right? Thank you. Now, Aurora has grown up. Can you tell me what happened when I was born? Why is there a legend of a princess imprisoned in the Copper Palace, and what blessings was I given? Rhine sat down, and he and the witches took turns telling the thrilling story of that night 10 years ago. It was an interesting story. It had a grand banquet, delicious food and fine wine, witches, magicians, fire-breathing, unstoppable dragons, terrifying curses, and also sacred blessings, a beginning beautiful enough to be a poem, a sudden fall from light into darkness, and an unexpected ending. What attracted Aurora most in the story was the prophecy made by the prophet. The prophet then was her current master, and the prophecy then was the future she had not chosen. Aurora listened to the story quietly. She was completely engrossed. So that's how it is. I am the source of the kingdom's terrible curse. Everyone saw the scene in the mirror, saw the future misfortune, so you ultimately did not choose the initially conceived blessing, changing death to sleep, but chose this other path instead. Aurora was deep in thought. Granny Rosa looked at the golden-haired girl's serious expression and couldn't help but feel affection welling up from the bottom of her heart. Yes, in that situation, the kingdom's sage chose an unusual path, which amazed everyone, but it indeed seemed to be the best choice. The king, queen, and these witches also supported this decision, step by step cultivating the princess into a warrior capable of slaying dragons. However, everything was just the adults. Rhine can be considered an adult here for now, wishful thinking. What did Princess Aurora herself think? She was a living person too. As an infant, Aurora did not know what responsibility rested on her shoulders, but the current Aurora knew everything. She had been burdened with a mission since birth, endured years of diligent training, and now, she bore a mission far beyond her age. Would Her Royal Highness willingly accept the choice everyone made for her back then? Aurora's birthday banquet ended. The witches left one after another. Aurora had proven to them that she had become a self-reliant hero and no longer needed their care. The room suddenly became much quieter, the living room empty. The little princess rested her chin on her hand, gazing at the stars, but then suddenly remembered something and abruptly turned to ask Rhine. So, what happened later? Master, your prophecy back then only went up to 50 years after I fell into a deep sleep and the kingdom was covered in thorns, right? So, what is the future beyond that? Finally, was the curse lifted? The night was utterly silent, even the distant birdsong was clearly audible. After a long time, Rhine nodded gently and said in a deep voice. I am very sorry that I could not ask for your opinion back then and made a choice for you without permission. Since that is the case, I believe it is necessary for me to let you know your future, even if it is not precise. Aurora's eyes immediately lit up. Rhine slowly said. The long river of fate has too many branches and possibilities. Although I cannot precisely predict the distant future, I can still see parts of the tributaries of fate. Most of their endings are not perfect, but the curse was indeed lifted. Aurora, since you are interested in the path not chosen, I can now show you the best, most perfect, and most impeccable ending among them. This is a right you are entitled to. Rhine took out a silver mirror again, the same one he had used 10 years ago to show the future. Aurora stared intently at the smooth mirror surface, almost holding her breath. This was a path not chosen. Ripples spread in the mirror, and a scene appeared again in the silver mirror. It was the desolate land of the kingdom, covered in thorns and thistles, after Aurora was pricked by the spindle and the curse occurred. 10 years later, the prophetic image played again. Strings of text appeared around the image, serving as annotations. Regarding this kingdom, such a legend spread, a legend of a beautiful sleeping princess. From then on, many princes came to explore, hacking through thorns and brambles, trying to get into the palace. But none succeeded. In the image, one prince after another appeared, hacking through thorns and brambles, struggling to break through the barrier of the hedge wall and enter the palace sealed by layers of plants. The thistles seemed to come alive, closing in, and the bushes also changed position, tripping the princes. These thorns, thistles, and bushes seemed to transform into countless magical hands, firmly gripping them, preventing them from escaping. The princes struggled, wailed, and finally died in agony. Again, ripples spread in the silver mirror, the image briefly plunged into darkness, and new annotated text appeared. Many years passed again. On this day, exactly 100 years had passed, and another prince stepped onto this cursed land. Within the mirror's reflection, a prince clad in luxurious robes appeared. He was tall and well-built, but his face was highlighted and indistinct. However, judging from his silhouette, he was likely a handsome prince. When the prince arrived at the hedge, all he saw were bushes blooming with beautiful flowers. He passed through the hedge with ease. As he walked forward, the hedge closed tightly behind him, as if welcoming the prince's arrival. Upon seeing such a scene in the mirror, Aurora was perplexed. Why is it that other princes who came were entangled by thorns, thistles, and bushes, and died tragically in this cursed land? But when he came, all these obstacles disappeared, and the hedge even made way for him. Could it be that he is a subordinate of the Black Witch? That's why the cursed plants not only didn't attack him but even opened a path for him. Princess Aurora, you truly are my student. You came up with the same question as I did. But Aurora, your guess is truly too much of a mood killer. Why do you have no poetic sense at all? Rhine's expression was calm, but he couldn't stop the smile in his heart. According to the original story, Rhine believed this was a poetic adaptation, a somewhat exaggerated interpretation of fated love. After all, in an older version of the story, Sun, Moon, and Talia, Sleeping Beauty was awakened by the king of a neighboring country, This monarch, upon seeing the long sleeping beauty, was overcome by lust and had relations with her, during which Sleeping Beauty remained in an unconscious, deep sleep. But later, Sleeping Beauty gave birth to two children, Sun and Moon. The unconscious sucking motions of these two infants awakened Sleeping Beauty. Afterward, Sleeping Beauty married this king of the neighboring country who had indirectly awakened her. In comparison, the adapted versions by Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm are much more beautiful. Compared to the original, having a chosen prince awaken the princess instead of a rapist king undoubtedly aligns better with people's beautiful expectations of a prince and princess story. The bush fence opening, the thorns receding, and the trees blooming with flowers, all these beautiful phenomena were meant to illustrate this wonderful moment. However, in a truly existing fantasy world, Rhine also found it difficult to clearly explain the reason for this miraculous phenomenon. The young mage merely shook his head faintly. I don't know either. Perhaps it's because, after 100 years, the Black Witch's curse has weakened enough to no longer pose an obstacle. Or perhaps it's because he is your fated lover, and when he steps onto this cursed land, even the world will grant its blessing. Huh. Fated lover. Aurora's eyes widened, filled with infinite confusion. But, I don't even know him. The scene in the mirror continued to change. The prince stepped through the automatically parting bushes, traversing a sea of crimson flowers, continuing his search deeper inside. Everything was eerily quiet. Finally, he arrived at the ancient palace building and pushed open the door to the small room where Princess Aurora was sleeping. Lying in the room was none other than Princess Aurora. She was sleeping soundly. The camera immediately zoomed in for a close-up of the sleeping Princess Aurora. Compared to the blonde girl of today, the Aurora in the image was older, closer to a traditional beauty, as she was already 15 years old when she fell into slumber. The Sleeping Beauty in the mirror was as beautiful and enchanting as the real girl before them. Her face seemed to possess a magic that could enthrall one's soul, yet it lacked that sharp, ineffable quality, appearing more like a soft flower, making one unable to help but feel pity. The prince's eyes widened the moment he saw Aurora, and he couldn't bear to blink. As he watched, the prince couldn't help but lean down and gently kiss Princess Aurora. The blessing was fulfilled, the curse lifted. In the mirror, Aurora suddenly woke up. She opened her eyes and smiled, gazing with deep affection at the prince who had saved her. The prince carried her out of the palace building. Soon after, the sleeping curse that enveloped the kingdom gradually ended, and people began to wake up. However, after 100 years, the kingdom was no longer its original self. Everywhere were haphazard trees and weeds, and every house was covered by plants. New text scrolled across the mirror. Soon, the prince and Aurora held a grand wedding ceremony, and they lived happily and joyfully together, growing old side by side. The colorful image in the silver mirror gradually dimmed, eventually disappearing into darkness. Ah, it's over already. Aurora only then reacted, very surprised. Among the many possibilities for the future, is the best, most perfect ending just like this? Aurora murmured with a hint of disappointment. So in the end, Black Witch Maleficent, the culprit, received no punishment at all. She is such a powerful witch, having long transformed herself into a true dragon, she will surely live for many, many years. What if she rises again and wants to destroy our kingdom once more? This time, who can stop her? And finally, that prince, I don't know him, he's a person from 100 years in the future. Right now, his father probably hasn't even been born yet. Then we just get together like that. What kind of strange development is this? Didn't the blessing say that only a kiss from someone deeply in love could break the curse? But he saw me for the first time, and I was asleep. He couldn't even say a word to me. Doesn't love need time to develop? Princess, your way of thinking is already too advanced for this era. Wait, is it all my teaching? How am I going to explain this to the king and queen? Rhine chuckled. Who knows? Perhaps love at first sight counts too. Rhine's tone became ethereal and distant again. Princess, you have seen the unchosen path. 10 years ago, on that disastrous night, two paths lay before you, one paved with flowers and poetry, and one strewn with thorns and storms. At that time, you were too young, just an infant in swaddling clothes. I couldn't ask for your opinion and had to make the choice for you, choosing the path you are on now, burdening you with such a heavy destiny. In these past years, to enable you to become the warrior of prophecy, I and the witches put you through rigorous training. Moreover, we are soon to embark on an unknown journey across the continent, and there may be unpredictable dangers along the way. To fulfill your destiny, you have sacrificed too much. You've worked hard, my princess. For this, I apologize to you for the choice I made on my own. Having said that, Rhine bowed deeply to the little princess before him. Aurora, however, shook her head vigorously and hastily helped Rhine up. No, that's not it. Teacher, I should be thanking you. And thank my king, queen, and the witch aunts and grandmothers. Thank you all. If I had followed my original life path, I would have been locked in a palace building made of brass, knowing nothing of the world, ignorant and incompetent. My literature tutor once taught me that a great man once said, of all misfortunes in the world, the most unfortunate is to be unaware of one's own misfortune. Before long, Enda would reveal the truth of the curse to the public, and the country would descend into chaos. And I would only be able to stay deep within the royal palace, hearing the maids report disasters from various places, unable to do anything but cry. Of course, it's more likely that I wouldn't even understand what a disaster was, because I had never stepped out of the palace gates. It is you, teacher, who gave me the opportunity to change everything with my own hands. Thank you. Once the matters in the kingdom are resolved, we will embark on a journey across the continent together, searching for the whereabouts of the Black Witch. Even if the final outcome isn't perfect, I will have tried, and there will be nothing to regret. Aurora and Rhine's worries were by no means unfounded. Even before Aurora's birthday, a terrifying rumor had already sown its seeds in the Rose Kingdom. No one knew where this dreadful prophecy originated. Perhaps gossip in taverns, perhaps the wild claims of some astrologer, or perhaps a direct speech by a guest who attended the princess's baptism ceremony that year. In a very short time, the saying that, the kingdom is cursed by the Black Witch and will be destroyed in 5 years, spread rapidly. Every day, the king was overwhelmed by bad news from various places. Farmers in the fields no longer diligently cultivated, bakeries and breweries ceased operation, wealthy people with property fled the kingdom overnight with their families, even the strictly disciplined army began to mutiny. People in the streets and alleys all said that the king of the Rose Kingdom was a terribly incompetent monarch. Everyone complained that the king had offended the terrifying Black Witch, bringing the country to the brink of disaster. Facing more and more bad news, the white-haired king had no choice but to give a speech, stating that even fleeing the kingdom would not escape the curse. He also promised that there was a way to end the curse before the disaster truly struck. The kingdom's wise man, who mysteriously departed 10 years ago, was actually working hard to dispel the curse and would succeed soon. However, people no longer believed the king's words. The Rose Kingdom was no longer the beautiful, peaceful, and harmonious country it once was. From the capital to small towns, and then to the countryside, there was no place in the entire country that was not in chaos. Even walking on the street during the day, one would encounter robbers blocking the way. Since the kingdom was going to be destroyed in 5 years, why bother adhering to order? This was not the worst part. At the most chaotic moment in the kingdom, robbers from neighboring countries also came to get a piece of the pie. They seemed to have been planning this for a long time. Enda's army raided the Rose Kingdom. They invaded towns, plundered extensively, raped women, and set fires everywhere. Ahead is the Rose Kingdom. You can take whatever you want, as much as you want. The gold and silver coins in the wealthy homes, the sculptures in the city's central square, beautiful members of the opposite romance, all are yours. Their soldiers have long lost their will to fight and are no longer the formidable force they once were. They cannot stop our iron cavalry. Before setting off, Enda's officers promised the soldiers this. In fact, they did just that, and what the soldiers actually did was 10 times worse and more terrifying than what the officers promised. No, why is this happening? In the royal palace, the king was both pained and despairing. Now, the king was even older, with not a single black hair left on his head. He was even unsure how much longer he could endure facing so much bad news. It must be those fools from Enda, deliberately releasing the news of the curse. It must be them. Their nobles once attended the grand ceremony of the princess's baptism and personally witnessed Black Witch Maleficent placing the curse, knowing all the secrets. The king roared in the palace, furious. He wanted to order the army to drive out the invaders, but most of the soldiers no longer obeyed his commands. At this moment, the king thought that he might still be able to seek help from Lord Rhine, the kingdom's sage. Not long ago, this little magician had visited the palace once and informed him of a soldier's crime. Just then, two figures walked into the palace and approached the king and queen. Father, mother, I can lead the army to drive out the invaders. The person who arrived was, naturally, Aurora. The golden-haired girl stood against the morning sun at the palace in trance, her petite and beautiful figure casting a long shadow on the ground, her face obscured by the backlighting. Seeing their daughter again, the king and queen were moved to tears. Behind the girl, the silver-haired magician Rhine slowly approached. The boy's face showed no change compared to how it was back then. The carving knife of time had failed to leave a single mark on him. The king personally donned his armor and went to the elite king's guard. The king had been a brave general in his youth, but now, his aging body could no longer support him in charging into battle. So, he appointed a general who was too young, letting her lead the elites to reinforce the troops defending the front line. Every soldier who saw the new general was incredulous, exclaiming in disbelief, unable to believe that a little girl who looked no older than 12 would be leading them, thinking it was absolutely a joke. But in less than half a day, before the sun set, Aurora had convinced every single officer and soldier. This king's guard, whose morale had been scattered just yesterday, underwent a complete transformation all at once, swearing in unison that they were willing to die with their new general. Despite this, no one associated the general before them with the kingdom's princess from the legends, who was imprisoned deep within the palace. Aurora then led this elite force to the front lines. The bandits from Enda arrived. They swooped down from the hillside, easily tearing through the Rose Kingdom army's flimsy defenses. The master swordsman who had once taught Aurora was now an officer in the army, riding a magnificent warhorse. But facing the aggressive enemy, even this master swordsman felt a profound sense of powerlessness. On the battlefield, individual martial prowess became limited. After learning the truth of the curse, the soldiers of the Rose Kingdom had long lost their will to resist. They merely raised their weapons, shouted a few times, offered a symbolic resistance, and then scattered and collapsed. Such a disorganized army naturally had no fighting power whatsoever. The soldiers of Enda laughed as they brandished their scimitars, slaughtering every enemy they saw. For 100 years, this once prosperous neighboring country had never been so weak. The master swordsman galloped away, trying to avoid hearing the sounds of slaughter behind him. Just at this moment, from the rear of the battlefield, a unit charged out. It was the reinforcements sent by the king. This unit was clearly a brave elite force. They were well ordered, disciplined, their slogans loud, their horns blaring, every soldier fighting valiantly and striving to kill the enemy, soon covered in their own or the enemy's blood. The commander of the unit led by example, charging at the very front of the formation. Her mount was not a warhorse, but a large dog, and the dog's eyes were as big as teacups. There were also two even larger dogs following behind the commander, one dog's eyes as big as a water wheel, and the other dog's eyes were astonishingly as large as the top of a tall tower. The dogs bit the Enda invaders with their massive jaws, tossing them high into the sky. They fell from the air, either dead or injured, and those thrown highest were smashed into pulp. The commander, with the two magical large dogs, fought on both sides, like a god descended from heaven, instantly routing a large number of enemy troops. Shoot arrows, shoot arrows. The invaders drew their bows and notched their arrows. For a moment, arrows rained down, aiming to kill this formidable commander. Dozens, even hundreds of arrows shot towards the commander, but the moment the arrows touched her, they all turned to dust. Man-made or natural weapons shall not harm her. The commander rode her tall dog, galloping across the battlefield. With one hand, she tightly gripped her weapon, breaking through enemy lines, and with the other, she took out a horn and blew it before the fleeing, disorganized army. The clear and stirring sound of the horn pierced the sky. This horn sound was like a battle song from heaven, igniting the blood of every officer and soldier of the Rose Kingdom, stirring the fighting spirit deep within their souls. Charge! Drive out the invaders! The already routed soldiers of the Rose Kingdom, the kingdom's officers who were fleeing in all directions, hearing this horn sound, rallied again, their courage rekindled, their appearance completely refreshed. Scalding hot tears streamed from the eyes of the soldiers and officers, tears boiling with anger and fighting spirit. Her voice can make people's hearts and minds sink, bringing even a heart of stone to tears. Charge! Charge! For the kingdom, for the king! Arrows and swords cannot harm our commander, this is divine protection. In the eyes of the officers and soldiers of the Rose Kingdom, the commander riding a large dog, flanked by two other large dogs, was clearly an unyielding banner on the battlefield. As long as they followed the footsteps of this commander, victory would surely belong to their side. If she charged, the army would be unstoppable. If she did not fall, the war would not be lost. Her charm could topple kingdoms, every action she took would sway the common people, and everyone in the world would be captivated by her. And so, the commander, riding a large dog, led the kingdom's officers and soldiers, charging all the way, their silver-white armor stained with blood. As the sun set, the bloody twilight stretched her figure into a long shadow on the ground. The blood red of dusk mixed with the blood spilled by the soldiers, indistinguishable from each other, dyeing the rivers and hills the same hue. On the distant hillside, the armored king, listening to the victory song, felt his eyes slightly sting. He looked towards the center of the battlefield, at his daughter's figure bravely fighting in the sunset. The king's thoughts couldn't help but return to 10 years ago, the night when the nationwide celebration was interrupted and the terrifying curse had just descended, and the prophecy uttered by the magician Rhine. When this warrior rides a warhorse across the battlefield, even a scattered army will yield to her charm and obey her commands. When this warrior sings a battle song before a routed and disorganized army, even a poorly disciplined force will reassemble and willingly die for her. I believe such a warrior will surely be able to lead His Majesty's army, kill the Black Witch, and fundamentally lift the curse. The invaders were driven out of the kingdom. For a long time, no one dared to invade the lands of the Rose Kingdom again. Because a godlike warrior had deeply imprinted her heroic image into the minds of every invader. All the invaders who luckily escaped back to their country recounted the process of that epic battle with as much exaggeration as possible, not missing a single terrifying detail. They gesticulated wildly, jumping up and down, greatly exaggerating the great terror they had faced. They said that a god had protected the Rose Kingdom and sent down a warrior. The god-given warrior was surrounded by 3 strange beasts, and sharp swords, halberds, and arrows could not harm her in the slightest. More miracles appeared across the kingdom. The morning after the war ended, 1,000 birds of various colors appeared in the sky above the Rose Kingdom. The birds' colors were exactly those of a rainbow, and they formed various patterns and characters in the air, telling the story of the god-given warrior. Some people heard foxes talking to themselves in the grass at night. The foxes mentioned the god-given warrior and that the kingdom's curse would surely be lifted. Fishermen encountered a terrifying storm when they went out to sea, but the storm miraculously subsided immediately. The fishermen caught fish, and after cutting open their bellies, found strange slips of paper. Upon returning home, their blind wives miraculously regained their sight. People widely said that this was the will of the gods. The Rose Kingdom must be a country protected by the gods. God bless the king. Few noticed that at the locations where numerous miracles occurred, a silver-haired boy in a hooded cloak slipped through the crowd. Excellent. Now people believe that the gods protect the kingdom and the royal family, and even the terrible curse set by Black Witch Maleficent will surely be lifted. Praise your wisdom, Lord Rhine. Deep within the palace, the king praised the wise sage. Just some knowledge from beyond this world, that's all. The sage thought to himself. From that day on, in addition to the imprisoned beautiful princess, and the magician who grants wishes, a new legend was added to the Rose Kingdom. In the capital, on the first floor of the largest and most magnificent luxury hotel, in the tavern where guests bragged to each other. The bartender and guests, amidst clinking glasses, once again discussed the legends of the kingdom. New guest, have you heard? That legend. The bartender suddenly stammered a bit. Are you talking about the magician who can grant wishes? No, not that one. Are you talking about the king's daughter, a beautiful princess who embodies all the good qualities in the world? Although no one has seen her. Because she is imprisoned in a palace made of bronze, and only the king and queen can enter and exit there. No, not that one either. The bartender handed the guest a bottle of ale, his expression unusually excited. I'm talking about the legend of the Valkyrie sent by the gods to save our kingdom. My command is to find Black Witch Maleficent. In the clearing, the three large dogs, after receiving their master's command, looked around, sniffing left and right. Finding nothing, the three dogs all lay down weakly, sticking out their tongues, and looked pitifully at their master, Rhine, who held the tinderbox. Sure enough, Black Witch Maleficent must be very far away, well beyond the search range of the tinderbox dogs. Of course, even if Maleficent were nearby, she might have a way to prevent herself from being found by magic and other supernatural forces. Rhine dismissed the dogs and tossed the tinderbox back to Aurora. The two walked back to the palace and flipped through a large stack of papers on the table. These are the intelligence reports compiled by the king and the witches, concerning Black Witch Maleficent's origins, places she might have gone, and other clues. This information pointed the way for the journey he and Aurora were about to embark on. According to these reports, Black Witch Maleficent was not born in Rose Kingdom, but traveled to the kingdom from another country and settled here permanently, a dozen years before Aurora's baptism ceremony. No one knew how long she had lived, or where she had learned her terrifying witchcraft. People only discovered that Maleficent practiced terrifying dark magic, was skilled in curses and torturing people, could summon dark creatures to serve her at any time, and could even transform into a giant dragon. Moreover, Maleficent's magical attainments seemed to be more profound than those of the other witches in the kingdom. Of course, it was not until after that catastrophic night that people truly realized her power and terror. According to the intelligence, Maleficent once mentioned that she had several sisters outside the kingdom. Of course, not true sisters, but witches who studied black magic with her. Maleficent and her sisters occasionally held gatherings, or communicated with each other through magic mirrors, discussing new dark witchcraft and how to concoct new potions. The ingredients they used for their potions were, naturally, strange and terrifying things like frog eyeballs, spiderwebs, toad saliva, and dead infant umbilical cords. The gathering organization of black magic witches seems to be quite formidable. Rhine frowned slightly. If he had to face multiple opponents as powerful as Black Witch Maleficent, the thought alone was despair-inducing. On this continent, which blended many stories, who could be the witches who formed a gathering with Black Witch Maleficent? Rhine couldn't help but wonder. He continued to read the text in his hand, his attention falling on one line of text. This passage stated that Maleficent once mentioned to Violet Fairy while boasting that one of the witches in the gathering was not human, but a sea hag living in the deep sea, skilled in concocting strange potions. This sea hag lived in Mermaid Country, which was located beneath 10,000 waves. Because she rarely came ashore, Maleficent and she communicated with each other using magic mirrors. For this, Maleficent even complained a few times. The sea hag living in Sea Kingdom. Perhaps she can be our breakthrough point. If Maleficent still has contact with her, this sea hag might know where Maleficent is now. According to the kingdom's historical documents, Mermaid Country is located beneath the sea off the south coast. Having determined the direction of their first destination, before officially embarking on their journey, Rhine and Aurora had one last task. To bid farewell to the king and queen. Deep within the royal palace complex, behind many walls and many buildings. There was indeed a palace made of brass here, the legendary dwelling of the beautiful princess. In fact, it was merely an abandoned palace left over from the previous dynasty. For most of the time, the brass palace was empty. But today, perhaps for the first time in 10 years, the legendary beautiful princess of the kingdom truly came here. To bid farewell to her parents. The king nodded gently. The monarch of the kingdom showed a weathered smile, took off the crown on his head, and slowly moved it towards Aurora's head. The aged monarch taking off his crown and suspending it over the head of a 10-year-old girl looked truly comical. The old king handing over the kingdom to a brave warrior who could save the country, consecrating him as the new king of the kingdom. This was the promise the old king had made to the magician 10 years ago. The king gestured over the princess's golden-haired head, as if checking if the crown's size matched her. My daughter. I am already too old. When you return from your journey with the sage, this crown will truly belong to you. The king finished speaking and withdrew the crown. Aurora nodded gently, performing the elegant court etiquette taught to her by her etiquette teacher, bowing to the king and queen. Farewell, father and mother. I will embark on a journey with the sage, traveling abroad to seek out Black Witch Maleficent. We will find the Black Witch, defeat her, and end the shadow that hangs over this country. One day, I will return to the kingdom with the sage, and succeed you as the king of this land, my father. During this journey, I will strive to learn how to become an outstanding hero and an excellent king." The queen, also aged, took out a handkerchief to wipe away tears from the corners of her eyes, but said nothing. Beside them, the little magician, dressed in a spacious wizard's robe and in classical wizard attire, smiled and nodded, saying to Aurora, "Let us go, my future queen." The sage and the future king bid farewell to the current king and left the palace made of brass. Walking among the royal palace complex, Aurora gazed at the distant mountains as she walked. "Teacher, I think, when we return, I will become the king of this country, and you will become a legend of this country." In the past, grammar teachers specifically taught Aurora complex and ornate grammar and exquisite rhetoric, and the little princess cleverly learned them all, so her language was like sentences polished by poets. "Father told me that, 10 years ago, after you helped him, you asked him to spread your story. Spreading the magician's story must have a special effect on you. Therefore, once I become the new king, I will do the same. Teacher, I will sing your story, record your deeds in history, and hire artisans to sculpt your statue. I will invite scribes to record every story from our journey, weave these stories into books, and ask painters to illustrate the most memorable scenes from the journey in color, so they will not be forgotten. Then I will ask bards to tell these stories around campfires and wells. Many years from now, the events we experienced on our journey will eventually become popular legends, turning into collections of fairy tales by every child's bedside. Imagine that scene, it's truly exciting." The young girl looked up at the azure sky and the white clouds, her eyes gleaming with the light of hope. Aurora then looked at the silver-haired boy in front of her who never seemed to age. When she was an infant, her teacher looked as he does now, and now she was almost a graceful young woman, yet her teacher had not changed. Time seemed to have paused for the little magician. The young girl stretched out her hand to measure his height, confirming that her head reached exactly to Ryan's shoulder, and giggled. "Teacher, you won't grow up, will you? I guess in 2 or 3 years, before the curse is completed, I'll be taller than you. Even if I become old and gray, you will still be as you are." Ryan did not speak, but simply walked quietly. He could imagine this scene, but was somewhat surprised that a 10-year-old girl would think so far ahead. Who knows what the future holds? After a long silence, Ryan said. Aurora once again cast her gaze towards the distant horizon, her thoughts soaring among the clouds, her face blooming like a flower. "Teacher, one day, I will become a pile of bones, a mound of yellow earth. And you will still walk upon the earth in this form. At that time, the earth will surely be filled with your legends. On this journey, I will learn how to be an excellent king, striving to become the greatest king in the history of Rose Kingdom, and be remembered for all time. Thus, after I leave this world, people will say that Rose Kingdom once had a great queen, and my deeds will be passed down. In this way, the length of my story in time can try to catch up with your life itself, though it's impossible to catch up, at least not be left behind too quickly. Even many centuries later, when you walk upon the earth, you might occasionally hear the people of that era telling the story of our journey. In my story, people will say that many years ago, the king of the country was granted 13 blessings at birth and bore a great mission, and she was raised by a wise, knowledgeable, clairvoyant, and miraculously powerful legendary magician. Oh my, that sounds truly epic. Just like the epic legends I used to hear. As Aurora spoke, her gaze grew deeper and more profound. Like King Arthur and Merlin, Ryan thought. Your philosophy and grammar are both excellent. Your perspective is quite unique. Ryan was unusually quiet today, trying to appear more mature. It seems I didn't waste my efforts in inviting those teachers to teach you. Ryan shifted his gaze from the young girl and also looked at the snowy layered clouds in the sky. The clouds were like gentle sheep, leisurely strolling in the vast pasture called the blue sky, basking lazily in the sunlight. He had also been looking forward to this journey for a long time. This world is vast, very vast. Countries like Rose Kingdom are countless in the entire Western continent. Moreover, if one keeps going east, there is the even more magnificent and mysterious Far East. As an immortal being with eternal life, Ryan understood that he was destined not to stop at this tiny place. Repeatedly fulfilling the same person's wish would greatly reduce its effectiveness. Generally, a destiny protagonist can only provide two significantly effective wishes. Ryan knew that to become a legendary magician worthy of an epic story, he needed to find more destiny protagonists on his journey. Suddenly, the silver-haired young man felt a burning desire ignite beside him. He knew this was Aurora's wish. To learn to become an excellent hero and an outstanding king on the journey, defeat the Black Witch, and end the kingdom's curse. This was the heaviest and most fervent wish the magician of wishes and miracles had taken on since coming to this world. The former sage of the kingdom, leading the future king, gradually walked further and further away. After Sleeping Beauty and Tinderbox, the next main story is The Little Mermaid. Over the past 2 months, in several small kingdoms south of the Rose Kingdom, many people witnessed the following scene. A silver-haired boy and a golden-haired girl traveled together. The boy appeared to be only 12 or 13 years old, while the girl was even younger. The boy had a scholarly air, always bathed in tranquil sunlight, engrossed in a book. The girl was more lively, but her vivacity still retained the elegance of a noble child. Both children were exceptionally beautiful, with large, bright eyes as clear as lake water, possessing a transcendent beauty that seemed to come from a fairy tale. The girl, in particular, was special, as if she had an innate charm that drew people to her, and her voice was even more melodious, like a lark singing in spring. No innkeeper or shop owner, upon seeing this lovely golden-haired girl, was unwilling to give her a discount. The two children were polite and adorable, staying in inns every night, clearly having a good deal of money with them, yet no one saw any family members or servants responsible for looking after them. Many speculated that they were half-siblings, which explained their different hair and eye colors. Some said they might be two wealthy runaway children, escaping their parents' supervision and embarking on a journey to a foreign land. Others said that the two children's homeland must have suffered some disaster, and their parents had passed away, forcing them to leave their original home and travel to this place. But no one knew that they were the former sage and future king of a prosperous kingdom. Once, a kind innkeeper asked the two beautiful children, "Children, where do you come from? Has your family suffered any misfortune? Do you need help?" Aurora replied, "On the day I was born, my homeland suffered a disaster, and my family members were also cursed. So, we must travel to a very, very distant place to find a way to break the curse and save my family." Her answer was quite honest. "Thank you for your kindness, good person. We do not need help. This task must be completed by our own hands," Ryan also said. Then, "May the gods protect you," the innkeeper offered a blessing to the two children. The next morning, as soon as the innkeeper woke up, he discovered that his leg, which had been limping for over a decade, had miraculously healed. But not everyone on their journey was as kind as the innkeeper. From time to time, ill-intentioned bandits would try to take advantage of the cover of night to rob these two wealthy children who were not accompanied by adults. However, all bandits and human traffickers with similar ideas vanished without a trace. Many days later, the story of the two children spread. But through word of mouth and repeated embellishment, the legend also changed shape. People said there was such a pair of siblings whose parents were cursed by a demon and were gravely ill in bed. The two children had no choice but to leave their home, embark on a journey, traverse mountains and wilderness, to a sacred mountain to find the legendary rainbow-colored flower that could lift the curse and heal their gravely ill parents. A magical sprite was moved by the two children and secretly protected them. When the two children encountered man-eating beasts, the sprite would cast a spell to drive the beasts away. When they met murderous bandits, the sprite would turn the bandits into ugly toads. Those who heard this story praised the children's resilience and wished them an early discovery of the miraculous flower, a return to their homeland, and the healing of their bedridden parents. Later, two scholar brothers specializing in linguistics and history, who collected and organized folk legends and fairy tales, appeared on the continent. They unearthed folk stories from different narrators and recorders, authenticated them, refined their language and rhetoric, and compiled them into a collection of fairy tales. The learned brothers, in their extensive research, discovered such a story. "Brother, this is a very interesting folk legend, widely circulated in the southwest of the continent. This story has several different variations, but the protagonists are basically a pair of siblings, and their goal is always to lift a curse on their family. I think it's necessary for us to record it." "All right, Let's call this story, The Siblings and the Rainbow Flower. Of course, these were all later developments. After a long journey, the mage, accompanied by the princess, finally traveled to the southern coast and gazed at the boundless sea. The water was so blue, like a clean, washed-out blue sky. The water was so clear, like the brightest gem. Golden sunlight spilled onto the water, shimmering, as if fine gold foil had been sprinkled on the sea. Waves surged and fell, breaking into countless white foam, as white as freshly fallen snow. The book says that beneath this great sea lies the mermaid country, where mermaids and other intelligent sea creatures reside, Aurora said. One of Black Witch Maleficent's, black magic sisters, was right beneath these surging waves, in the mermaid country. Since Black Witch Maleficent was in contact with this sea hag, she very likely knew where Maleficent was now. The princess looked at the surging waves, once again troubled. But how do we go down? And even if we can go down, how do we find the mermaid country and other intelligent sea creatures in the vast ocean? And furthermore, even if we find the mermaid country, how do we communicate with them? The information I've seen says that the merfolk of the sea country are very hostile towards humans on land. They even deliberately create disasters and attack ships passing through this sea area. The two of us, as humans, even if we could enter the merfolk's country, would certainly not be welcome. We might even end up fighting them. Thanks for watching.